Tony, the stage is yours.
Good morning, friends and real estate professionals from across the globe. My name is Tony Danziger. I'm one of the directors of the Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors, a director of the New York State Association of Realtors, and the co-chair of the Hudson Gateway Global Business Council. I'm also the founder of Dynamax Realty, a property management firm serving domestic and international clients in New York. I would like to extend a very, very warm welcome to each of you on behalf of your hosts, the Brooklyn Board of Realtors, the Greater Bergen Association of Realtors, the Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors, the Liberty Board of Realtors, the Long Island Board of Realtors, the Staten Island Board of Realtors, and the North Central Jersey Association of Realtors. Together, this powerhouse coalition of associations represents probably the largest concentrations of realtors and real estate professionals anywhere in the world. We want to welcome you to our 14th annual Global Real Estate Summit. Normally around this time every year, we would be congregating and networking at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in the heart of Manhattan in Times Square, what we call the crossroads of the world. But we're still at the crossroad of the world right now, because even though the global pandemic prevents us from gathering in person, it's given us this opportunity. And now real estate professionals from every corner of the globe can experience one of the largest and most important real estate events in New York City. We've designed this two-day event to be somewhat dynamic. Some of our panels are designed to be very short, but very focused. Some panels will focus on the nuts and bolts of the real estate transactions, such as global tax and immigration visa updates. Other panels will introduce us to the resources that are available to help us grow our businesses. For the first time, we're also introducing our association partners from around the world. Not only will they share their perspective on the current real estate market in their countries, but they will also share how we can expand our business and grow our networks using the established cross-border relationships that we already have available to us through the NAR. And that's just today's agenda. First, a bit about housekeeping. This is a Zoom webinar. You will only be able to see our presenters and our speakers. Please utilize the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to suggest any questions you may have. We have a very tight schedule, but we hope to get in as many of your questions as possible. Without further delay, I'd like to kick off our summit by introducing someone very special. I'm honored to introduce the president-elect of the National Association of Realtors, the largest trade association in the United States. Charlie Oppler has been a realtor since 1981. He is the COO of Prominent Properties Sotheby's International Realty, which has 12 offices in New Jersey. Charlie has served on the NAR's board of directors many times over the last 17 years. He has chaired the Realtor Party Coordinating Committee, the RPAC Trustees Committee, and he has served on 4 of NAR's presidential advisory groups. He served as NAR Vice President in 2015, and he was the president of the New Jersey Association of Realtors in 2004. In 2007, Charlie was named Realtor of the Year by the Eastern Bergen County Board of Realtors, and he served as their president in 1996. Charlie Oppler, thank you for your dedication to the real estate industry, and thank you most of all for helping us kick off our 2020 Global Real Estate Summit.
Tony, thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here and share a few minutes with basically my home area. You know, we never get away from our hometowns. And as you said earlier, we have so many members that are so involved. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to all the sponsors for making today happen, because, you know, when you're in person, it's a lot easier. For me to virtually see everybody that's going to attend is a new phenomenon, but it's also given us an opportunity to do more things that maybe if we had to travel all the places that we used to, we couldn't get as much accomplished also in the professional world. So again, thank you very much. On behalf of the National Association of Realtors, when I look at the agenda between Carol and Joe and so many of our talented people at the National Association, you know the commitment we have to global. In fact, my last trip was to Panama for the installation of the Akabir leadership. And now Sandra Martinez from our company will be the global ambassador for Panama, Belize, and Costa Rica. So that's an honor for our company. And, you know, when I think global, our company speaks 40 languages. So I know what the metropolitan area is in terms of global. And one of the things you touched on earlier, which I think is important to know, we learn about all the tax and the immigration, so on and so forth, but we also learn about all the opportunities to do business with referrals from agent to agent, company to company, because of the opportunities that you've given up your time today to participate in. So when I think about being involved here, it's about relationships. One of the presenters this morning, Emily Cassis from the Hudson Gateway Board, we met, I guess it's now 2 years ago, on a train going to from Paris, going to Cannes for the MIPIM event. And my wife and I are sitting on the train, and we are not speaking a native language. All of a sudden, the train stops for what felt like hours, was probably only 10 minutes, but when you don't know where you are and where you're going, and you can't communicate, it's kind of an awkward feeling. All of a sudden, Emily's son, and I don't know how old he was at the time, maybe 6 or 7, just heard us talking in English, popped up and said, everything's okay. We're going to probably be going back, and basically gave us a rundown of how we were going to go backwards to get to where we were going to go. And I just think about that, and Emily and I have stayed in touch since, but you know, relationships matter. So for everybody here, take the time to get to know one another, because you just never know when you'll have the opportunity to do things in the future. To me, you're all leaders. You're leaders in the community, you're leaders in your company, you're leaders in the industry, because you give your time to be involved in events like this. As the 14th annual Global Summit, and I've attended some of them in New York City, it's a special opportunity. You create, I know from the National Association standpoint, our bilateral partners around the world are important because they aspire and achieve some of the same things that we do, whether it's the code of ethics, designations, building MLS systems to better serve the consumer as well as the members. Those are things that make a difference. And you've committed to doing so many of those things in the different respective countries and around the world. A couple just last thoughts, and then we'll let you get on with your program for the day. Events like today are just the beginning for so many of you. You know, I don't know how many first-time attendees you have, but every time you get involved in something on the next level, make sure you ask somebody else. If you like what this event is, make sure you ask somebody else to sign up for the 15th annual, because more things get done because somebody asked. I think about all the opportunities I've had in my career, which is now going on 40 years. It's because somebody asked me to get involved in RPAC. Somebody asked me to serve on a committee at a local board. One of the sponsors today is the Greater Bergen Association. When I started in the business, it was Eastern Bergen, and there was the Northwest Bergen and Central Bergen and Pascack Valley. We grow because we collaborate and do what's best for members and the consumer. So the way I look at this is there's so many more opportunities as the years go on, because there are so many areas that we're just scratching the surface and trying to build relationships around the world and within each other in partnerships locally as well as throughout the United States, with more programs, more opportunities, more designations, more availability. So I would tell all of you to take advantage of those. Second of all, right now, the National Association of Realtors has a program called Right Tools Right Now, which there are free designations or designations at cost, education opportunities, books, materials, and everything else, either at cost or at no cost. So you should avail yourself to all of those, certainly from the global opportunities that you will have as well. So there's just a lot of things that go on a day-to-day basis. I've looked at the program, and I'm going to try and keep popping in and out as I have some other duties during the week as we're in our governance meetings and our national convention. But certainly wanted to take the opportunity to welcome everybody to the 14th Annual Global Summit. Thank you to all the sponsors. I know how difficult that is to put that all together, and I truly appreciate the chance to spend a couple of minutes with you today. So thank you, Tony.
Great. Thank you so much, Charlie, for kicking off our global summit. And thanks for your support. Thank you for NAR support. We look forward to collaborating with you and with NAR again in the future. And you'll probably be getting a call from us during your term. So look out for that.
I certainly understand. I certainly understand that, and NAR is going to be here, and I know between Carol shortly coming up and Joe Schneider tomorrow, you'll know how committed NAR is to the global community.
I know you are. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to introduce Carol Karas, who is the Director of Designations and Certifications at the National Association of Realtors. And Carol has over 23 years of association management experience. She has a diverse background in both global and business and professional development. She's leading this summit with our first power session, where we will be introduced to NAR's brand new CIPS mentorship program. Just as a reminder, our power sessions are meant to be very short, but very highly focused. So we hope you'll enjoy them. Carol?
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Charlie. It's a pleasure to be here. As Tony mentioned, I've been in this world for 23 years. I've been talking about CIPS and helping our members get their CIPS designation since 1997. So I've watched the program grow. I've watched the changes. We helped implement changes. When NAR became really focused on global, it was a great opportunity for us to start the global. I was there at the beginning of the Global Business Council movement, if you will, and congratulations to your area that's done a phenomenal job. And 14 years of doing global education is fantastic, and we appreciate that. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I think Gary was going to start it for us.
Gary's working on setting that up now.
While we're waiting, if I could see the audience, I could probably pick many, many people out that we've worked with over the years, from getting their Global Business Council off the ground, helping them to become award winners, helping them put on CIPS designation courses. So it's fun to be back with all my friends. And here we go. Okay, so this is going to be a quick power roundtable, if you will, about the CIPS designation and our brand new benefit, which is our mentor program. So for those that maybe don't have the designation, I'm just going to let you know that it's the Certified International Property Specialist. It's specialized training to help complete a global transaction and really help you reduce your risk when you do that transaction. And it's the only international designation recognized by the National Association of Realtors. And we're very proud of that. So are our partners around the world. So right now there's over 4,100 CIPS designees in 50 countries. That's your referral network right there. In 2020, believe it or not, and it still floors us that we added 895 new designees. That's the largest CIPS class of new designees ever in NAR's history of having the CIPS. And we go back to the 1980s. So in a pandemic, in the world that we live in, to have the largest class ever, we're very, very proud of our core sponsors, our franchises, our partners around the world. And we also have almost 1,000 designees outside the United States, which is also another record. And one of the benefits that we have that I'll talk about a little bit later, but our designees shared over 400 referral opportunities throughout the year in our closed Facebook page. So if you are a designee and you're not on it, you really need to be part of that conversation, because it's not just between New York and Florida or California and China. It's all around the world where they're looking for partners. In every state, actually. So how do you earn it? You take the 5 courses, you complete an application, including 100 points of international experience. And believe me, I've been talking to students for 23 years about that. You can find the points. We can help you find the points. Your global council staff and leadership can help you find the points. And attending a 2-day event like this does count as points. Also attending some of the NAR Global, anything else in your local market. So let us help you find the points if that's something that you think is going to be a barrier for you, but it really shouldn't be. You submit the application fee and the dues, and you pay yearly dues to keep the designation active. Okay, so what are the benefits? Why should I get it? Or if I already am a designee, what am I missing? So we have a CIPS directory profile. You can search for a designee, whether you're a designee or not, a member of the public, or another realtor looking for that special partner in a different country, in a different state, even in your local market. You can search by languages, what countries they specialize in. So if you are a designee, you want to get your photo and your bio into that directory so you can be found. Again, we have a private Facebook group, and we have exclusive events at NER meetings. For instance, this afternoon is our virtual pinning ceremony from 1 to 2 Central Time, where we're going to showcase our brand new designees. And we also have a sample referral form. So if anybody's stuck on, I don't know what to do next, we do have a sample referral form that you can look at. We have a global marketing center, which is where we house all of our benefits. And PhotoFi, I know a lot of you know that's a new benefit for NER members, but we have assets for the CIPS designation, as well as other languages assets we have in there too. And then we have our quarterly e-newsletter called the Global Perspectives. Okay, so let's talk about the brand new CIPS designee benefit that Tony really wanted me to talk about. So we created it this year. It took 9 months to ramp it up. We had a whole host of volunteers. We had CIPS instructors, we had global ambassadors, we had seasoned CIPS designees help us step up to the plate to create assessments, checklists that our designees can use. We will be creating videos that's next on the list. We have tip sheets, and we have a sign up for limited one-on-one mentoring. So if I'm a new designee or I'm a designee for 5 years and I really feel like I need some help here, you can sign up through our Global Marketing Center to be considered for the one-on-one mentoring, where you'll have a coach, if you will, and you can say, oh, we'll give it a month or we'll give it 2 months, but it'll be between you and the mentor as to how long and how much information and help you may need. Okay, so one of the ones that we keyed into was getting started. Think about how many new designees we have this year. And the question that we've gotten all these years has been, I have my designation, now what? So we created some self-assessments on who am I? What do I bring to the table? Do I speak another language? Where's my sphere of influence? Have I lived, worked, traveled outside the United States? Did I attend this meeting today and meet somebody from another state or another country? How do I get a hold of them? Assessing your community. What's in my community? Do we have universities with international students? Do we have even private schools go all the way from elementary to high school? How many languages are spoken in those private schools? Do I have any cultural clubs? Do I have any, what are the new restaurants coming to town? There's a reason a new restaurant is coming to town. And so it's how to assess yourself. What do you bring to the table? What does my local and state association bring to the table? Do they have a global committee, a global council, a global forum, global events? Well, maybe I didn't know that. Maybe, as Charlie said, maybe somebody needs to bring somebody along and say, hey, I'm going to this event. Maybe you want to come too. I know you're a new designee. Let me help you. So it's learning how to assess your local real estate community. NER has research in every state. We also have the opportunities to look around and see what else is out there. We can help you figure out what's out there. The economic development What's your governor doing? Are there trade missions? That kind of thing. So it's trying to open the eyes to, yeah, I sat in a classroom for 5 days. Maybe it was virtual. Maybe I traveled somewhere. I met a lot of people, but I don't know what to do in my local community. And even the conversation you're having over the next 2 days is about global in your local community. So that's for the folks that want to get started or need a jump start, if you will. And then we have benefits, and we talked about the Global Marketing Center. That's the name of the place, the landing place that we call our, where you get all your benefits from discounts, marketing materials, uh, the links to the Facebook page, how to download a certificate. And for the 795 new designees, or the 895 new designees, it's like, how do I get my virtual pin? Because we're challenged like everybody else. Normally we hand out pins at the pinning ceremony, but since we can't do that, we created a virtual badge, if you will, that our new folks can put on their websites. But also if you already have the designation, you can go in and get that virtual badge too, which shows that you're designee. So all of the benefits are in the Global Marketing Center, and the conversation we have day to day, and that's why we help create a whole cadre of mentors is, yeah, there's benefits. And I know I learned about them in class, but I forget what they are. So if anybody wants to learn how to use the benefits, how to use the marketing materials, where can I get a discount? What else do you have? PowerPoint presentations for listing. That's where all the benefits are. And they're going to have conversations on how to best use the benefits that we have. And just as a point of information, we are updating all of our marketing materials as we speak. If you notice, if you're already designee, we rebranded our Global Perspectives newsletter that's in print, but it's also available digitally in the Marketing Center. And we're going to update the look and feel of our marketing materials. It's time, and I think you're going to really enjoy them. So these are only for designees. They can only get into the Global Marketing Center with their NRDS number, and that's where we keep everything. The third group is about networking, and congratulations, that's what you're doing here. So it's how to enhance your networking skills. We're going to have checklists, tips, tricks, ideas. And if you think about the past year, it's, probably been 9 months, almost 9 months already. We've been virtually networking because we had to. We had to pivot that way. We had to pivot in the local, the state, the national meetings. But our global practitioners have been doing this all along. If you think about it, our CIPS designees, yes, a lot of them used to get on a plane, but they didn't have to. They learned how to meet clients virtually before Zoom really was born. They had, other ways to do a FaceTime, or there's a lot of applications. They used WhatsApp, they used different translation tools. So our global practitioners have been networking virtually. We always prefer in person, right? So we talk to our new designees. Why don't you come to NAR? Why don't you go to your state meeting? Why don't you go to your local association and see what networking opportunities they have? So we're going to talk to our designees through our mentors on how to make the most of networking. And when you think about it, your social media sites are a really great networking tool too. So on the Facebook group, people will ask questions. Do you have a lender that specializes in XYZ? I don't know what to do, with this buyer, that kind of thing. So social media, all these virtual, they're great networking. So the conversation will continue into next year until we go live, how to make the most of networking virtually. And finally, marketing. Who hasn't heard this question? It's like, how do I market my listings? How do I market myself? So there's going to be a whole group of mentors that our designees can sign up to help with their marketing, their branding, how to maximize your SEO with keyword searches, how to be consistent in your branding, how to brand yourself as what you want. Are you a luxury CIPS designee? Is that your thing? Are you waterfront? Are you golf course? Are you in an area that they come for schools? Are you the school expert? What are you? So the last one is on marketing and building your brand. And we're excited about this, and so are our designees. So how do you join the mentor program? You have to be an active designee. You visit the Global Marketing Center. Yes, it's a long URL, but it's theprintingstorefront.com/NAR Global. You download the materials that are interested to you, and they're segregated by, or they're separated by the mentor program. And then you look at the different PDFs that we have in there. There is a one-on-one form. It's a Google form where you can sign up to have a one-on-one coach, if you will. And you'll want to check back regularly because this is something that's a work in progress. We're very proud of where we are today. But of course, as the mentor program ramps up and people start signing up, we'll hear from our 40 mentors as to what are common themes, what do our folks really need the help with? What are they asking of us? And then can we create a video about it? Can we have a Facebook Live event around that one particular item? So as you are going through your next 2 days where you're very focused on specific topics, it's like rapid fire hose, if you will. That's what we want the mentoring program, a snapshot of, I just need help in this one area. Where can I go? And they can go to our mentoring program. So you got to sign up or you got to get your designation. So for more information on getting your designation, you can visit our NAR site for the CIPS. And that's where we have all the information on how to earn it, whether you're in the United States, in Canada, or outside the United States, or if you're association staff. So I've had my designation as association staff since 2000. So it's great when you walk the walk, talk the talk, and you can allay your members' fears. It's not that difficult. You'll get through it. We have phenomenal instructors, and it's just a powerhouse of education, just the tip of the iceberg to start your global career, but it's a great reference material to go back to, if you will, and we house all the new manuals in the Global Marketing Center. So say I got my designation 10 years ago, as a current designee, you can go in and download the latest manuals, the student manuals of the courses, and we just updated all of them within the last 18 months. So they're all fairly brand new. November is Designation Awareness Month, as a lot of you know. So all of our courses online for the designations and certifications are 20% off when you purchase in the month of November. No, don't worry. If you purchase all 5, you don't have to take them all in the month of November. You have a year from when you purchase a course to finish a course. And then here's how to contact us. So nar.realtor/CIPS is our website. Email is cips@nar.realtor. And if you're not a designee, you can join the global conversation in the facebook.com/NAR Global. We invite anybody that's interested in global to join that Facebook, and we have a Twitter account at NAR Global. And with that, if we have time and there's any questions, Tony, I'll let you decide if there's time for that or not.
Thank you so much, Carol. And actually, this program is brand new. So it launched just a few weeks ago, right?
Yes, yes.
So basically, most of our audience here is hearing about this for the first time.
Right, because we didn't make a big announcement until closer to convention because we weren't ready. You know, we were getting ready for convention. We're handling the largest class we've had. We had a lot of course sponsors with very large courses this year. So just the mechanics of the growth we had this year, but we wanted to be thoughtful and we wanted to have our members have their input. So we had many, many meetings. We created checklists, we tweaked them, and we wanted to be as close to ready as we can. And we're ready. We've already had a few people sign up for the one-on-one, and it hasn't really gone out yet.
That's fantastic. And one of the goals of this year's Global Summit is to be a little bit more CIPS centric. We're focused on helping our members and our CIPS designees get more out of their designation. And so this is something very important. It's an amazing new program, and I'm sure it's going to be extremely popular, and it's going to keep your team very, very busy.
It is. It is. How did you find out about it?
Well, Aldo Ayema actually.
Aldo. Okay. Yes.
advised us, and one
one
of our best and brightest in the metropolitan area,
There you
and
go.
also on this committee for setting up this global summit.
Oh,
Uh,
super.
so he's
Yeah.
he's been a fantastic resource, as everyone has been that's participated this year.
That's super.
Um,
That's great.
So Carol, thank you so much. If we have any questions for Carol, we have a few minutes. We're happy to take your questions. Just put them in the Q&A.
So I do have a question for you. What is the cost?
There is no cost if you're a designee. You have to be a CIPS designee, so those are your yearly dues. So there is no extra cost, just like there's no extra cost for Photify or any of the assets, any of the marketing we have. That's part of your the designee benefit. So zero cost.
Okay, and just to confirm, the mentoring program are free to the new members?
They're free to all the members, all the 4,100 designees. If they all signed up, I don't know, we might have to walk out the door and jump off a cliff. But if you don't have to be a new designee to take advantage of it, you could be somebody that feels stuck or feels isolated. You know, this has been a tough couple of months, right? Where, yeah, we see people on Zoom and on social media, but they may feel alone. So if they need help in any of those 4 areas, doesn't matter if you've been in the business with your designation for 15, 20 years, we're there. And then we can learn from our members, whether they're new or not, right? They can help us help others. So they're all welcome.
So I'm getting lots of people saying thank you so much for all of this. I have someone else saying that they've been asking and hoping for this mentorship program, so they're thrilled about it. Somebody else is asking the question, any requirements, like how many years in a real estate field?
To be a designee or?
Correct.
No, it's just if they go ahead and take a look at the application. So the 5 courses, of course, come first, and you can take them all in a row if that's how the association's putting them on, or you can take them, you can virtually travel now, right? So if you're in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, surrounding states, and you have a lot of clients that go from New York and buy something in Florida, Arizona, Texas, whatever it is, and you see that there's a virtual CIPS coming up, I'm just making this up, in March in Texas, well, why don't I attend that one if I'm free and available, because maybe I'll be the only one from out of the area. Maybe I'll meet a lot of Texas folks. So it's taking advantage of this unique situation we're in. Years ago, people would get on a plane and go and be the only one. But now you can be a few maybe and just be that go-to person, because you get to know your classmates at the end, right? After 5 days of bonding, they become referral partners for life. So take the classes and then look at the application. It is 100 points, but there's 11 categories on how to get them. Could be you traveled outside your country, traveled to 3 more countries, have another designation, have a degree of some sort, speak another language, belong to a cultural diversity club, belong to your global committee, went to a global council event, went to an NAR event. There's a lot of ways, or maybe your franchise has a global meeting. You went to your franchise event and went to a global session. So there's a lot of ways to get the points. And we've never turned anybody away, and keep that a secret, because they were missing a few points. Never, right? We just say, go ahead and sign up for the session coming up at your association next month. We believe you, and you're good to go. We don't want to keep people out. We want to get people in.
Thank you, Carol. And one more quick question. You mentioned getting on a plane. The United States is not the only place that offers CIPS classes, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we usually have them in about 10 different countries. We had a huge one in Cambodia, Jamaica, Costa Rica holds them annually. I think this is the first year with the situation going on. Costa Rica was closed, so they didn't put one on, but they've done one every year for 7 years. So yeah, you can take them in another country.
Great.
And they're virtual, right? You don't have to get on a plane. Our CIPS Advisory Board Vice Chair, Maurice Hampton, he went over to the Philippines to get his designation, but that was his choice. They were having a big event, they were having the classes, and he has friends for life from going away, outside of Chicago. So
Thank you.
Fabulous.
Thank you so
So
much,
I have another
Carol.
question for you. I have someone who is moving to Hawaii. Is the local board of realtors active in CIPS in Hawaii?
they are. And they've had courses in Hawaii too. So absolutely.
Fabulous.
And we have some folks on our committees, Leo Koch, who's our global liaison, he's from Hawaii. So he's attending all our global meetings if anybody's catching any of those. So yeah, absolutely. And he's been a designee for a long time, very passionate. So our association's put on the courses there too. So maybe when we open up a little bit more, your folks might want to go to Hawaii in the winter and get it there.
What is the current count of CIPS?
It's 4,100 and change. So
41. Okay.
back in the day, it was a steady 1,500 because I've been in CIPS, like I said, for a long time, and it stayed at 1,500 for a very long time. And once we made some strategic changes, once NAR really focused on global under Janet Branton's senior VP leadership, and of course our NAR leadership team, it really got a big boost. It used to be 7 days, now it's 5. It's still a lot of content, but we made some changes to help the growth.
Great. It's a fabulous designation. It's a fabulous program. And this is a great new mentorship program. And everyone should look into it and take advantage of it. Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
being with us, Carol, and for sharing with us this important information. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. And see, I have my brand, my CIPS shirt on which side of this thing. So.
I love it. Great.
All right. Thanks. Have fun over the next
Thank
couple
you.
of days.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to actually reintroduce someone. Charlie Oppler already mentioned Emmy Cassis and her fabulous son, who's actually joined us a couple of times on some Zoom meetings. So Emmy is the broker of record of Portico Realty, which she founded in 2015 in Westchester County. Maybe her son is the broker of record. I don't know. I don't know. But Emmy opened a branch office of Portico Realty in New York City in 2017. In 2020, she was appointed as the NAR Global Ambassador to Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay. She is currently this year's co-chair of the Hudson Gateway Global Business Council. She is also the vice president of the World Council of Brokers for FIAPSI International. Emmy has been a guest speaker at several prominent real estate forums around the world, including the 11th Congress for Developers and Investors in Real Estate in 2019. And the Latin American Congress for Real Estate Professionals in Argentina in 2017. She is also an instructor and a faculty member at Fordham University, the Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors, and also the Confederación Argentina de la Mediana Empresa. Emmy is fluent in Spanish and English, and she's a contributing writer to the Man Report Residential, which is a real estate magazine. Emmy, thank you for leading our next panel on global financing.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. It has been a pleasure already. And Charlie, if you're hearing this, thank you for already introducing me and my son, who has been traveling around the world with this global real estate. And so today I want to as well thank Carol. I am a CIPS. I've been a CIPS since 2008. And it has been a wonderful program since then. Since I started, I was one of those that will get on the plane to go and take a class. And it's true, you build relationships for lives. So whoever is interested, definitely something to look into it. Now, for me today, it's a great honor to have two friends, David Walt and Charles Ruffin. They are going to teach us a little about global financing. As we all know, in this global real estate arena. We have investors and buyers of different kinds that they will come to the United States and they would like to invest. And so we need professionals that can guide us through. And one of the main and the most important things that we want to know is how are they going to go through the process and get finances if needed. And so it's a pleasure for me to introduce Charles Ruffin from Immigrant Mortgage Company. I give you a minute or two if you want to introduce yourself, and then I'll go to David.
Oh, sure. So Charles Ruffin with Immigrant Bank. A little bit about Immigrant Bank. We are the oldest privately owned bank here in New York City. It's been around since 1850, and we're within the top 5 largest privately owned banks in the United States. My position at the bank is basically mortgage originations, commercial and residential. So my presentation pretty much will be about residential, but we also provide commercial financing for US and foreign nationals as well. I've been with the bank for roughly about 10 years and my position is AVP.
Thank you so much. And David Walt from United Nations Federal Credit.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good morning.
I can't tell nowadays with COVID. My name is David Wald. I'm with the United Nations Federal Credit Union. We are the credit union for the United Nations, the World Bank, and the IMF, International Monetary Fund. We're based here in New York. Although we are the credit union for the UN and World Bank and IMF, we're open to the public. We have I'm considered an outside loan officer. So I don't actually deal with the employees of the UN. I deal with everybody outside, and I'm a mortgage loan officer. The United Nations Federal Credit Union has been around since 1947. 5.5 years ago, they realized they were overcapitalized and they decided they needed more ways of lending. Overcapitalization is a good thing for a financial institution. So they hired outside loan officers like myself, and now they're 5.5 years ago, they started taking in borrowers from outside of the UN and the World Bank. We are a portfolio lender, a $6 billion credit union. We have unique products. Charles Ruffin from Immigrant is a friend of mine for years. We actually refer business to each other. He is an amazing professional, knowledgeable, and I'm honored to be on the panel with him. And thank you, Emmy, for inviting me.
So thank you both. So today what we want to do is, especially because we do not have too much time and we could be talking about financing for the whole day, we want our audience to leave this conversation that we're going to have with a lot of added value. And so I wanted to ask you both, if you can walk us through the anatomy of the financing process, what's happening from A to Z. We deal with these international buyers. What do we want them to have ready for us so we can move forward? And what's happening in the middle when there is that silence moment, which the buyer doesn't know what's happening, but on the other side backstage, you are all running like crazy trying to get things done and people do not know what's happening backstage. So here we are. I give you, David, if you want to start and say, this is what's happening from A to Z.
So international borrowers are quite different than US borrowers. And that is because these are borrowers that do not have to give tax returns. All we need is a letter from their employer. We don't need tax returns, but preparation is paramount, whether it be a US citizen or a foreign national. The issue that we have with foreign nationals is where is the down payment coming from? Mm-hmm. And getting the money to the United States. And that's so important to do up front. And realtors should realize that they need to get these foreign national buyers that need financing to get pre-approved just like a US citizen. And there should be no black hole in the middle of the process, Emmy. Mm-hmm. That should not happen. With preparation up front, getting the assets in line, moving them to the United States, making sure that you source it, because that is an issue with foreign nationals. It can't just come over as gifts or money from businesses. It has to be seasoned for 2 months. That's a requirement. The US government oversees financial institutions, credit unions, banks, and they are very aware of monies coming into the United States. And so as a financial institution, we need to track it for 2 months. And so preparation is everything. With my clients, what I do is I send them out a list of documents that I need upfront in advance of them even looking for properties. And once I get that, I can determine whether we can do a closing. We can go from start to closing in 30 days. There's absolutely no reason.
Mhm. So do you think, and now a question for Charles, do you think that being prepared, kind of like preventive medicine, let's say, will allow you to make run the process smoothly? Do you think that last minute we can add a couple of documents? Why also last minute banks will request a couple of documents?
Sure. And what Dave mentioned, that's absolutely correct. And what you're stating, being prepared, that is so important because it's two different aspects of it. Is being prepared regarding the property itself, what type of property is being financed, making sure that fits the bank's criteria. Is it a warrantable, non-warrantable condo building? If it's a residential 1 to 4 family, do you have an illegal unit in a basement? So there are a lot of things that need to be taken care of up front, especially just dealing with the property and dealing with the individual borrower as well. So what we try and do, once we determine what type of transaction it is, it's different types of information we will provide that gives a checklist even before that particular client has found the property to make sure they can qualify based upon our checklist and criteria. So everyone knows up front. And that checklist is really different if it's, say, a second home versus investment property. For an investment property, we have unique programs in which it's basically no documentation regarding financial information and things of that nature. It's more or less a business purpose loan in which we are financing it as an investment property, in which it could either currently have a tenant in place or be delivered vacant. So that checklist, as you can tell, will be much less than if it's a second home. Even if it's a second home, that particular checklist is somewhat different as well, because a lot of times it might be based on having an accountant's letter. That's what we would use based upon doing the underwriting of it. But a lot of these things should be thought about up front, and there should be that symbiotic relationship between the realtor and the individual working for the mortgage company to make sure you start off on the right track. And also another big portion is, how would that property be held as far as title? Would it be in an LLC for tax efficiency? Would it be in the borrower's personal name? So these are a lot of things that the realtor, if they have that overall knowledge, especially dealing with other facets that can pop up later on, if they're dealt with initially, you have a greater likelihood of having a successful transaction.
Mm-hmm. So what happened and why last minute buyers will say, why are they asking me again for the same document? What happened? Can we give them a little bit of, yes, it's the same document. The reason is because, so they're aware that some documents will have to be resubmitted.
I mean, the documents have a lifespan, meaning that bank statements are good for 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
A letter from the accountant. If you're dealing on a purchase of a new condo, where this can go on for 3, 6, 9 months, a year, documents need to be updated because they expire, and we may need an updated accountant's letter. But that's just due to the fact that time has elapsed. Now, doesn't mean, in most case scenarios, as a lender, we're probably one of the fastest lenders out there. But documents, even US citizen documents, pay stubs can expire. We need updated, especially with COVID now. So that's the reason why we need updated documents. And then what happens is that if we get an updated bank statement and all of a sudden we see a 20 or 30 or $50,000 large deposit, we need that explained. And then the clients get upset because they're saying, well, you know, it is what it, there's no answer. So these things happen. Setting the expectations in the beginning. A good mortgage loan officer will explain to the clients what to expect and what may happen later on in the process, especially if the process is going to last for months on new construction.
Mm-hmm.
So if you set the expectations up front, it should run smoothly.
We should have a very smooth process
Yes.
in theory. Now, there's always wrinkles, right? Now, talking about what's happening today, and of course we're going virtual in a lot of things. We say preparation is key, and setting expectations is also another thing that we want to make sure that everybody understands what to expect and what is going to be asked. And that's why we have your checklist, which is fabulous. Now, in terms of the two of you, what are the differences specifically in the programs that you are offering at this moment? I know that we refer business to each other. One of you may not do commercial, the other one may. So will you expand a little bit more? So the public will have, realtors, if we have in the audience, agents that have clients coming from overseas, who they need to talk to. So maybe Charles, you want to start?
Sure, I can. So, Dave and I, like Dave mentioned, we've been working together, as far as for years now, because with Immigrant, we are a real niche type of lender. So we usually see deals dealing with foreign nationals, just say if there's some particular situation with it in which it might not fit, say, for example, Davis criteria. So with Immigrant, we have niche programs, but one big issue, I wouldn't necessarily issue, but one criteria for us is dealing with leverage. So we have these niche programs, but generally for a foreign national on a purchase, you're probably around a 50% loan to value, cash out 40, 45%, just depending. But just for example, with that scenario with the different types of property, either a second home or investment property. My investment property program goes to $10 million. And with that program, like I mentioned, it's no documentation because it's a business purpose loan. What that means is tax returns, bank statements, things of that nature. So it's a business loan based upon underwriting with the rent that's in place, or if it's a property being delivered vacant, we're going to use market rent. So that's kind of a niche program compared to like other lenders out there, which majority of them don't lend to foreign nationals, period. But that's one of our niche programs. Also just dealing with the larger loan sizes, $3, $4, $5 million or more. I mean, our largest foreign national loan was like $20+ million. So that's one of the main differences just dealing with Immigrant. But when I have clients that fits, the criteria that I think would be a better fit with Dave, higher leverage, longer term, a better rate, that would be a referral that I would make to him for those type of scenarios. So this panel is really great. It gives you you receive the criteria to really determine what's an Immigrant deal and what's a United Nations Federal Credit Union deal. So like I mentioned, mine would be usually the second choice individuals come into my particular program, but I have, a lot of flexibility dealing with the underwriting of it and the different type of scenarios we would finance.
And how about you, David?
So we have 3 separate programs for foreign national. One is considered foreign national relocation. That's someone that just got a visa, just came over here, started a job, but doesn't have US credit, hasn't filed tax returns for 2 years. We can do that as a primary residence. The rates are about 1% higher than our normal rates, which are still excellent because 30-year fixed rates right now are 2.75 to 2.875. And for a foreign national, we can do a 30-year fixed if it's relocation, if they're living here. And their rate would be 3.75, but they actually get to purchase something now. I always recommend adjustables for foreign national relocation because they'll be able to refinance in 2 years once they have 2 years of tax returns and US credit. The other programs are pure foreign national. One is foreign national for a second home, and we can go up to 60 LTV, 60% financing, but they need to have a passport or visa that allows them to be in the United States for more than 90 days. Otherwise, we can't consider it a second home. And then there's pure investment, and that ranges from a 55 LTV to 50. Now, you need to understand that our guidelines have been tightened up since COVID. As every bank's guidelines have, risk has been mitigated by reducing the loan to value. So we're still doing the foreign nationals. Foreign national, we don't do foreign national credit reports. We just ask for 3 alternative pieces of credit from their country, translated into English. And the income is different than what's used in the United States. For self-employed, all we need is a letter from the accountant giving us a 2-year financial statement stating how much that they earned. They're self-employed. It's actually less paperwork than a US citizen. Dodd-Frank determines the documentation that banks require for US citizens. But because this doesn't fall under Dodd-Frank, because this is outside the parameters. So it could be easier. But our guidelines we're flexible, we do it. Our rates are the lowest in the market for foreign nationals. But we do have some issues with where the income is derived from. So as Emmy and I spoke in the past, and Charles knows, because we're the United Nations Federal Credit Union, we have to be able to determine income. Unlike we do determine income. Charles has a no income verification loan. We don't. So to be able to determine their income, we need to know what currency they're earning their income from. And there are certain currencies that, because of the way it swings every day, it can go up or down 20% in value, their currency, we may not accept the currency. So that's the first question that I ask, is what currency is the income derived from? And certain currencies we will not accept. Most we do, but, and so we have flexibility out there. And so what I ask for all my realtors is ask the questions. Bring it to me. I'll tell you whether it's possible. And many a time I'll say yes, many a time I'll say no, give Charles a call.
And there you go, Charles, pick up the phone. So thank you. Thank you for actually being so upfront and honest about the whole process. And so, you know, we went through what do we want the potential buyer to do and do their homework. We went through the process, how the property will be held, titled, and where the money is coming from, type of currencies and everything. Now, let's talk about the person who is bringing that buyer to you. And let's talk about the agent, right? What do you expect from the agent that will help the process, that at the end of the day will assist the client the best way possible? What do we want from our agents to do and to ask? What they need to bring to the table as well. This is all teamwork, right? We are all part of a team to make sure that we can satisfy the client's expectation. So that's the question. What do we want from our agents?
So I'll start off. First of all, we should be getting the client, the borrower, qualified before anything. Once you have the qualified borrower, foreign national buyer, and Charles or I have qualified them that they're qualified to get financing, they should be doing their due diligence on the property, just like Charles said earlier. I think Charles does also, we actually do investment co-op We allow that. We allow a foreign national to buy a co-op for investment. And we will do that. Obviously, the loan to value is going to be lower. It sounds wild that there are some buildings that allow investment. They're few and far between, but there are co-op buildings. But they should get the information on the project. Get the project approved, get the documents, which is, we're going to need a co-op or a condo questionnaire completed. Get a generic, get the 2 years financials on the building, the budget, if we're talking about condos and co-ops, the budget and the master insurance policy. If they're buying a home, do the due diligence, make sure there's any illegality in that building, because time is of the essence, especially with a foreign national. We want the loan, we want the process to go smoothly. Just like I set my expectations, the realtor should be setting theirs and
Correct.
doing their due diligence up front. And in the beginning, that could be saying, hey, where is your, before you even get qualified, where is the money coming from? I just had a client from Lebanon. Lebanon banks just froze everybody's accounts. They cannot transfer the money to the United States. A doctor from Lebanon who is buying a condo in the city, new construction, cannot transfer the money now.
Yep,
It's horrible.
exactly. It's
So what I say is, get the money for foreign nationals, get your money to the US and put it in a US bank. It doesn't have to be my bank or Charles's bank. Any bank that would accept, a foreign national deposit. And there are lots of them.
Exactly.
And get the money over here, get prepared. Just like a US citizen, get prepared. Just because you're a foreign national and you don't live, or you're not going to own or occupy, doesn't mean you shouldn't prepare just as well as a US citizen.
And that's why we have the agents to hold their hands. How about you, Charles? What do you think? What do you expect from the broker, agent, realtor, the person that is bringing that buyer?
Sure. Everything that Dave just mentioned, also dealing with that particular client. The individual agent, even before they go to the bank, they should know specifically enough information to make them feel comfortable, because when we deal with a foreign national, there's a higher criteria of a background check and things of that nature. We're going to look into that particular foreign national to begin with. Are they politically exposed? Is there any negative history regarding them in their home country? So you can have a client and it's great and they're looking for X amount of properties or a property, but if there's something in their background that can disqualify them right off the bat from financing, you're spending 2-3 weeks showing them properties. That could be a big waste of time. So one, I would definitely say, know who you are dealing with up front. Two, know exactly the end result as far as how the transaction should be structured, because you can get into the process and then the client say, oh, my attorney thinks I should have it in an LLC, and that LLC should be owned by a non-domestic LLC. And that just throws a monkey wrench into everything. How should that transaction close in? So that would maybe deal with the borrower's attorney. Okay, I think I was disconnected. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, so that's basically some of the things up front that the individual realtor might want to keep in mind, is finding out the individuals who are in a sphere of influence for that particular client, knowing who they are, how would they play their part in this transaction, and making sure everybody is on the same page with that client's sphere of influence as well, to those professionals, accountants, the attorneys, to make sure what you have in mind as far as the end result of closing, everyone is on the same page. And that way he can make the bank, or she can make the bank cognizant of what's going to be taking place regarding this transaction.
Great, which I would like to add to that. We want to make sure that we have the relationship with that potential buyer is honest, and at the same time explain that in the United States, the questions about money are very common. Whereas in other countries, asking the question first thing that you do would be offensive. You know, here we want to know how much money you have in the bank. So I know I can show you something, so I know that you can afford it. And I'm going to be talking about your finances with other people that will help us, like the two of you, for example. And so I definitely will add to make sure that the client, and educate the client that they know that those are going to be questions that are going to be asked, and it will feel like an x-ray of their finances and their situation, but that's the way it's going to be.
Right.
I know that, yes.
You know, whether it be a US citizen or a foreign national, a realtor tries to represent the client with honesty and clarity, and tries to teach the client through their experience what to expect. With foreign national buyers, the tax laws are so significantly different. Just as Charles was saying, how is ownership going to be held? I've heard story over the years on how terrible advice has been given to foreign nationals when they purchase a property. And my favorite story is an individual from Europe came over here, bought a $2 million condo. The realtor told the individual that because the wife did not come over, he was buying it. And the realtor told this individual he can add his wife on after the closing. So in the United States, there is absolutely no tax between spouses. You can add a spouse onto a title, onto a deed, and there is no tax ramification. Foreign national, you add on your spouse. You just gifted your spouse half the value of the property. In this case, it was a $2 million condo. He added his wife on, and now he was liable for $400,000 in gift tax because it's 40% of the 1 million that he gifted his wife.
Which that's why we say, educating the client is key, and from the very beginning. And we are so happy that after our session, and I invite everybody, all the participants, we're going to have a tax expert as well that will actually talk about what David just mentioned. And I know that, we are going to be running out of time in a little bit, and I want to ask you so many more questions, but a quick one will be, in today's market, where do you see the international buyers coming from? Charles, where are your clients, international clients, coming from at this moment, and where do you foresee coming from in the future?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say right now we have like a favorite as far as country. We see them all over the place, actually, but pretty much a lot from, say, Canada. I just closed a deal on a commercial property for an individual from China. So we see them, from a lot of different countries. So I really wouldn't want to say which one in particular, but overall, we do see individuals who are coming, especially within our market, because they see a drop down with values in certain areas. And when you look at it, also some of their economies are more or less going through a rough time period. A lot of economies are these days just dealing with COVID. So the issue is, if you have funds in a bank, where can you still have the highest return? So the US, when you look at, our real estate market, even though it's been up and down, throughout the years, it's always been a safe, secure market, especially for foreign capital. So I do see, even though it has dropped overall, compared to a couple of years ago, I do see, foreign national transactions still will be occurring, and especially if their home market isn't as stable as what they can expect.
How about you, David? Where are those global inquiries?
I've seen a significant reduction in Chinese buyers in the New York City market. I still am seeing, even though overall foreign investors have slowed their pace during COVID, I'm still seeing Australians, I'm seeing Europeans, Canadians. There's still an interest.
Mhm.
And they're still buying, whether it be on Long Island, whether it be in Westchester, in Hudson County, New Jersey. I'm seeing a lot of, there's still a lot of Indian buyers. And I know that's part of Asia, but it's more Indian buyers now than before. And it's a great time. You know, I don't care what anybody says about the market slowing down in certain areas. We're busy with purchases,
Mhm.
and it's good. In any time that you have adversity in the market, there's opportunity.
Right.
And this is the time.
Mhm.
Anybody that says no, I don't want to talk to. I passed by. It's all about staying positive. It's still
Correct.
busy, and that's the fact. And there still are foreign buyers coming over here.
Now, a last question for both. If you were that international buyer, what advice will you give to yourself? Let's see, who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay.
As far as advice, basically, I want to make sure I have a team in place. As far as the realtor, accountant, attorney, if that's like from those individuals in my home country, or if I didn't have that in place, I would want to have it in place in the United States, because that is so critical, starting off on the right path with those individual professionals with you, and also finding the right property, dealing with the realtor, making sure that property fits my criteria, if it's investment property, the type of return I'm looking for. And just like even I mentioned, having a clear path of what the bank, if that individual is receiving financing, a lot of times they buy all cash, but if they are receiving financing, I want to know exactly what is required upfront to make sure that before I sign a sales contract, I can provide that, and it can be a win-win scenario with all parties. So again, it kind of comes down to the due diligence on the individual investor or second home purchaser, and I want all of that to be in place. And I would want to deal with a professional who can help me put that in place if I didn't have all the pieces together.
How about you, David?
Charles hit the nail on the head. Having an attorney that knows foreign national real estate law, understanding the tax ramifications. An accountant is vital for the borrower, but the attorney is more vital to the real estate transaction. And I've seen attorneys try and deal with foreign national buyers and sellers. There's tax laws with regard to a foreign national seller where the taxes have to be withheld at closing, which stops the closing. I've seen so many transactions like that, and it all comes down to who's representing the buyer. So the realtor should be doing and advising the foreign national, understanding that this is not a US citizen, and making sure that they have the right team around them, just like Charles said. It is so vital. And again, setting the expectations, just like you said, Emmy. The realtor should be having a conversation with these foreign national buyers and telling them, you're going to need to show this stuff. I know that you typically don't do that, or you do it in a private office at a bank in your country. Guess what? It's going to have to go via email, secure email. But you're going to need to do this. This is what is going to be needed. And you're going to need an attorney that's going to represent you to protect you, just like Charles said before. Certain foreign nationals, it's important that the property be held in an LLC, which Charles allows, which I allow. And understanding, is it a husband and wife that's purchasing? You surely don't want just a husband and not to have the wife on title, or a good attorney will say, you know what, if you're not going to have your spouse on title, then you should be getting a life insurance policy to offset the estate tax or that's going to happen, which is huge for a foreign national. A good attorney, a good accountant will give the right advice to protect the client. And if we want to grow our business and a foreign national client has friends that may be buying in the future, we need to treat them like gold, give them the right advice. And if we don't know, don't answer, get someone who does know.
Mhm.
And I promise you, I have a client that 5 years ago, he came over here. He's the CEO of a major company and he moved over here from Germany. I have received 7 referrals from him. And foreign nationals, all of them foreign nationals, either buying here or relocating here and can't get regular financing because they don't have a history. It's so important to do the right thing, just as you would with the US.
As always. We have a couple of questions before I close. Since we got disconnected for a second, I don't know if Gary has the questions. You want to go over some of the questions since we have 2 more minutes, and then I will close the session.
Certainly. So gentlemen, good morning. What if a borrower is self-employed and a US citizen? What docs are needed for them for that lending?
I'm confused. If we're talking about international borrowers or we're talking about a US citizen?
A US citizen who is self-employed.
That's regular. Okay, Charles has his own program. Self-employed for us, we need 2 years tax returns, business and personal, year-to-date profit and loss. And due to COVID, new guidelines that came out from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, which is industry-wide, we need 2 bank statements showing the business is still viable. There's certain businesses that have shut down because of COVID. Example, certain restaurants, have suffered. And so therefore, that's required. That's what we require with regard to income documentation.
Sure. And regarding immigrant, for owner-occupied properties, like you just mentioned, a U.S. citizen, basically the same as what Dave just mentioned. But a good thing about myself is I have a lot of other contacts with other different entities. So there are programs out there. They're basically called accountant's letter programs, in which you don't have to look at tax returns. You can basically get a letter from an accountant, and that's typically for US citizens. And there are still certain banks out there for even with owner-occupied properties that individuals self-employed, they don't look at tax returns either. So what I try and do, just like if I have a great deal, I think it'd be a better fit for Dave. If it's a better fit for someone else who has another program, I'll just give them that contact, because the main thing is to help that particular client or whoever that realtor might be. If they have a situation in which they're having a hard time with the financing, some of my contacts could, easily step in.
I think we do have David and Charles' contact information handy. We talk about this. If anybody will want to or has more questions or clients that you think that will be appropriate to talk to either David or Charles, you can contact them directly. They're more than welcome to receive your inquiries. I don't know if you have it handy, but if not, we can provide it. Wonderful. So because, there are a lot of questions and we are running out of time. I know that we want to get to all, but unfortunately, since, of course, we could be talking about finances forever, I just want to thank you both for a wonderful conversation. To all the participants, there you have it. Have a good team. Make sure that we educate, we prepare, and so the process can run as smoothly as possible. I thank you all for being here, for taking the time to share your knowledge, and we will continue our next panel. Please stay tuned, because the next panel actually follows what we've been talking, from finances to taxes. So I will give the floor to Tony, my friend and co-chair, and we can go from here.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Emmy, David, and Charles, for some great updates. And I love where there's adversity, there's always opportunity. So thanks for reminding us about that. This is a great segue into our next panel, where we're going to be talking a little bit about the global global tax issue. And I'd like to introduce Alicia Castellanos. Alicia has more than 17 years of tax advisory experience. She specializes in U.S. tax planning and compliance for non-U.S. families with global wealth and asset protection structures. She also specializes in foreign investment in U.S. real estate and other assets, pre-immigration tax planning, U.S. expatriation matters, foreign inheritances, foreign accounts and assets compliance, offshore voluntary disclosures and tax amnesties, and foreign companies wanting to do business in the U.S. Alicia is fluent in Spanish and has a working knowledge of Portuguese. She's an active member of the Society of Trusts and Estates Practitioners, the New York City Bar, the New York State Society of Certified Public Accountants, and the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. Alicia, I want to say, I can't lie, I just got a headache because this just resurrected these horrible, horrible nightmare of a tax class that I had at law school years ago. And I'm not going to share with anybody how I did in that class. But I think it's safe to say that a lot of us who work in real estate have very little understanding of the tax laws and regulations. And frankly, they can be scary and frightening. But that's why we have special people like you who are incredible professionals and very knowledgeable in this field. And I hope that you can take us through a little bit of this today. So thanks for joining us.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Tony. And thank you everyone for joining us. I really appreciate the panelists in the previous panel because they actually spoke a lot about what I'm going to talk about now. I do have a presentation and it's my first time presenting, so please bear with me. I mean, at this panel. But I am very, very excited and I look forward to getting to know most of you. So as mentioned, I'm based in New York City and we specialize on working with ultra high net worth families with a US connection. So these are families who are coming from overseas into the United States to live, to invest, to do business here. A lot of them are buying real estate. But we also work with Americans with financial assets overseas, and that includes real estate. Let me see if I can start sharing my presentation. Okay. Can everyone see can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So what I'm going to talk about is what's a little bit of a lot of things actually, and I hope I can get to everything because everything I have is very important, especially for people who are investors who are thinking to come to the United States to invest and buy real estate. In my experience, whether the market is good or bad, there's always an interest in the U.S. real estate market. And that's good for all of us in this area because that helps us generate business and continue with our businesses. So in my agenda, I'm going to talk about the different taxes that non-US persons who are looking to invest in the United States should be thinking about before actually investing, and what they can expect to pay while they're in the United States with that investment. And also talk about different structures to mitigate those taxes and sometimes even avoid those taxes. So that way they can invest in a tax efficient way. I'm also going to talk about FIRPTA, which is the Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. That's something that I think David alluded to earlier. There's a 15% withholding generally on the purchase price of real estate, and that's imposed on the seller. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And I'm also going to talk about filing requirements of somebody who has real estate in the United States, whether they're US or non-US. If they are generating income, they're going to have to file and report taxes on that income. What else? I'm also going to talk about the Large Business and International IRS division. They actually just recently, I think in September, issued a campaign regarding this area. And so that's something that we should all be aware of, especially we're working here in the US and working with non-US investors. And also the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, they have these orders called geography targeting orders, which monitor investments in different areas in the United States. Let me see if I can move. Okay, great. So this is what are the taxes that in general a non-US investor needs to be aware of? Well, generally you have transfer taxes, right? So when somebody buys real estate, generally those transfer taxes are paid by the seller, but there's a particular tax in New York City that's actually paid by the buyer, and that's the mansion tax. And the mansion tax is actually a rate of 1% to 3.9% of the purchase price, but only for those properties that are over $1 million in price. So, you know, that's for the privilege of being able to buy something that's considered a luxury item, you know, that's worth more than $1 million. So there's also real estate taxes that are paid to the localities where the real estate is actually in. So that's pretty straightforward. But what's a little bit more confusing and some things that taxes that non-resident buyers are not aware of are estate and gift taxes. Those are also transfer taxes, and those transfer taxes are imposed when the property is transferred. The gift tax is imposed when property is transferred during the life of the donor, and the estate tax is a tax imposed on the heirs of the property at the death of the donor. So why is that important? As alluded by David earlier today, you know, there are situations where maybe you have a couple who is buying real estate and maybe let's say a non-resident couple, a non-US couple buying, let's say a condo on Park Avenue, right? $10 million worth of, you know, condo. So they buy the property, but only one of them is the one that actually has the money to buy it. And they are the one who fund the purchase. If that purchaser adds the name of the spouse and the spouse didn't really contribute any funds for the purchase, that's actually going to be considered a gift. And that gift is going to be subject to a gift tax. And that gift tax is pretty hefty, it's 40%. So, you know, before titling anything, before making a purchase, it's imperative that the purchasers, especially if they're non-US people, speak with an accountant, speak with an attorney, speak with someone who can advise them as far as the taxation of whatever transaction they're doing. So that's the estate tax. And then there are also gift taxes, income taxes. And income taxes are basically imposed on US sourced income. So if, for example, the property is rented, there's going to be taxation on those rents. At the time that the property is sold, there's also going to be a tax on the capital gain of that property. So this is just an example of a real life story. Let's say, you know, if there's a property, let's say the property was bought for, I don't know, $5 million, right? Or let's say it was a gift and the property is now sold for $10 million. Or at the time of death, the value of the property is $10 million. The estate tax is going to be 40% of the fair market value of the property. So in that case, the non-resident alien estate will have to pay a $4 million tax if they buy the property in their own name. And this is why it's important to plan and structure the purchase such that the best solution is used to mitigate that tax. Let me continue. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, if there's rental income, there's going to be a tax to be paid on that rental income. Tax returns need to be filed. Generally, if you are an individual, the rates are going to range between 10 and 37% at the federal level, depending on where the property is in what states. Some states have an income tax, and that's going to be an additional tax to be paid. Now, on the gain of the sale, I'm sorry, let me go back. For corporations, if the owner is a corporation and the property is within a corporation and it's generating rents, the corporate tax rate is 21%. Now, let's say that there's a sale. The sale itself is taxable, and the capital gain rate for an individual is 20%. For the corporation, it'll stay at 21%. There's no distinction. There's no different rate. Now, there is something called FIRPTA, which I mentioned earlier. And also David in the previous panel mentioned. That is the Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. That act came into place sometime around 1980, and I think that's because there was a lot of investment of non-residents into the United States that were buying real estate, and that real estate was appreciating, and they were selling property, and then they were not paying the taxes. So the government tried to basically set up this mechanism such that these non-resident investors would have to pay their fair share of tax. And the way that FIRPTA works is the actual tax is imposed and it's required to be paid by the buyer. So the buyer is required to withhold from the seller's proceeds, the seller's selling proceeds, generally 15% of the purchase price. So let's say that there's a sale of $10 million. The withholding is going to be $1.5 million. And that's actually going to be, it's required whether there's a gain or a loss. A lot of clients don't like that. They tell me, well, I have a loss. Why is there withholding on my sales proceeds? And it's the law. There's no, there is a way that we can mitigate that we can reduce the withholding so that it's only the tax that's actually going to be due at the federal level for whatever gain there is. Or if there's no gain, it can even be reduced to zero. So, but there's a process, and you have to apply to the IRS. There are timing issues. You need to make it on time. You need to make it by the date of the closing. Otherwise, the IRS is going to reject your application. At the moment, because of COVID, the IRS is really backlogged. So, excuse me, I'm not really recommending clients do this right now, because by the time they file a reduced withholding certificate, it's going to be time for them to file a tax return anyway. So might as well just file the return and get their money back in that way. I do have a few clients who filed for a reduced withholding certificate, and they closed sometime after New York locked down in like mid to end of March, and they're still waiting for the IRS to process those applications. So it is a very tedious application process, and you need to work, or your client needs to work with an accountant, with an attorney who really knows what they're doing to make sure that they are not rejected and that they're processed. But at this time, like I mentioned, the IRS is really backlogged, and they're just having a really hard time processing everything that they have in their hands, especially because many of them are working from home. There are not that many people going into the offices. So just moving on, there is a tax that Americans have to pay that non-US people don't have to pay, and that's the net investment income tax. That's a 3.8% additional tax on the capital gain of the sale of real estate, but non-resident aliens don't have to pay this. Okay, so now getting to the structures of how to make a purchase, right? How to buy property in a tax efficient way. I believe earlier today in the previous panel, David alluded to getting life insurance. So this is long-term life insurance. And this is not this slide, but there's some in some instances there are possibilities, or it could be an option for non-resident aliens to buy real estate and to get a long-term life insurance, so that they could so that life insurance at the time of their demise could pay for the real estate the estate taxes that the heirs would have to pay. In this case, we have a structure, and I'm mindful of the time. I think I only have a few minutes. So in this structure, we have an irrevocable trust, and that trust could be a domestic or a foreign trust, and that trust could own the real estate. And in that way, by having that trust in between the actual owner and the real estate, that actually is going to block the non-US person from having to pay the estate taxes. I'm going to move on to the next one. Another example is a lot of clients like to work with offshore companies. These could be British Virgin Island companies or other Caribbean companies where they have an underlying LLC, and the underlying LLC buys the property. Something about LLCs, a lot of foreigners like to use LLCs. The LLC is not going to solve the problem of the estate tax, okay? The LLC is a mechanism to make it easier for the non-resident alien to buy property. But as far as planning for taxation for the estate tax, it doesn't really do anything for them. So it's important that they reach out to an accountant, an experienced accountant in this area, and ask for help, or a tax attorney.
And I'll say on that note, actually, I think that's something we all have to remember, because these tax rules and regulations are extremely, extremely complicated. And it's important that we know who we can contact when we are dealing with a global real estate transaction, and that we're able to work with people who have the knowledge and the expertise to deal with these particular issues. I know there are a lot of things that we can talk about on this particular topic today, but I want to tell our audience that the slide presentation that you've prepared is something that we're going to share with them, if that's okay. So everybody is going to be getting a copy of that with your contact information as well.
Okay. Tony, you're frozen. Oh.
Okay, so we're going to be sharing your slide presentation with everyone today, so they can get the full benefit of the information that you put together for us. And I want to thank you very much for joining us today and for giving us this incredible presentation with these important topics.
Oh, sure. So I'm sorry, you kind of froze for a little bit. So am I done? Okay, can I continue?
Well, you're not done just for now.
Okay, good. Okay, great. So, well, there were other slides, but basically, as Tony was saying, it's important that and the panel before me, it's important that you have a good team, you have a good broker, you have a good lawyer, you have a good accountant. Everyone, their counts, and everyone's role is a little different, but at the end, we all can help clients maximize their investments in the United States or overseas, wherever they are investing in. Happy to share my presentations with everyone, and thank you very much for having me.
Do that. And speaking about working with the right team of professionals, I like to also invite another speaker with us today, who's going to be talking about immigration and visa issues, a very hot topic. Steve Maggi was born in Argentina and raised in the United States. He received his law degree from Georgetown University Law Center in 2001, and he launched the SMA law firm in 2004. A U.S. immigration and consular attorney with over 15 years of experience. His law firm provides comprehensive immigration and consular law services, including assisting businesses in their sponsorship of foreign nationals, as well as family-based petitions and humanitarian cases. Steve has represented clients at over 50 U.S. embassies and consulates around the world in their visa and waiver application processes. He has been interviewed by ABC News, CNN, Bloomberg, New York One, Telemundo, Currents News, and New York One Noticias. Welcome, Steve Maggi, and thank you for leading our third power session of the day on the best visa options for foreign investors in the U.S.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. How do I share my screen?
Down at the bottom where it says share screen, and then you click on your presentation.
Okay, hold on one second. Here it is. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Maggi. I'm an immigration attorney. I've had the honor of being part of this summit a few times before. And as you can see, my presentation is called Post-US Election 2020. I was trying to be positive that we would have the results in by the time that we did this summit. So the timeliness of this could not be more opportune. I'm going to talk about some basic things that we've discussed in previous summits, but also wanted to give you guys an idea of a snapshot of where we are. And a lot of this has been shaped by COVID. What's happening with immigration laws that because of COVID, the president has implemented a lot of reforms to the way that the laws are applied, and borders have been closed. A lot of you that I speak with have said to me, how do I get my clients here to see properties, et cetera? So we're going to go through the practical aspects of how to deal with this now, because we really don't know what the election results will be. We don't know if it will be contested or when that will play out, but also if Vice President Biden becomes president, it will take some time to reform the changes that have already been made and to undo some of them and to open us up for more investment. So let's talk about first logistics.
Steve, if I could ask you to click on the slideshow to make it as a presentation.
Okay, hold on. I think it's this one, right? Is that good?
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So the first thing is logistics, right? How do you get your clients to see the properties? Some of you work commercial, some of you work residential, and of course, residential is very personal. And a lot of you have had to adapt. And I think that what I've heard from some of my colleagues that are brokers that work in this sphere is that it's become more commonplace, just like working with Zoom and doing these webinars like we're doing now. It's become more commonplace for brokers to show and agents to show properties virtually. But what if your clients really want to come, or your prospective clients want to come here? Right now, there's no direct entry from 32 countries, and there's no way of knowing when that will be lifted. But that is the UK, Ireland, China, Brazil, as well as all the Schengen area countries, which is essentially the rest of the EU. So how do people come? There are two ways. One is they can triangulate through a third country that's not on this list, and they can quarantine in another country for 2 weeks and then enter. So if they have valid visas, they are allowed to enter the United States. Right now, they just can't do it directly through one of these countries. They can't come from one of these enumerated countries. The other exception, which came out about 2.5 months ago, is called the national interest exception. So if you have clients who are working for US companies already, then they can come if you show that there is an economic benefit to the United States. And that is not possible when you're a tourist, because you're not really adding to the economy and you're not creating jobs. So if you have business clients who have work visas, they can make that argument and apply for what's called a national interest exception. We're doing a lot of those for our clients right now, and they're applied for directly through the US embassies and consulates. A little bit more information about that. This started 2.5 months ago, as I mentioned, but there are also some exceptions, which are students, researchers, business travelers, and most importantly, and the positive message that I'll give you to everyone here is that despite all the barriers that we have, including the closure of most embassy processing, is that investor visas like E2s, which are the non-immigrant temporary versions, which I've talked about before, and EB5, which is something that we always talk about when I'm part of the summit, those are both being processed, and they have been processed for the last 4 months since the embassies reopened for emergency appointments. So you can get an emergency appointment if you're going to bring something to the United States that adds to the economy, like investment. So the topic I'm talking about today is visas for investors. And so E2 and EB5 are still on the table. question that I always get here, and it's kind of going back to basics. Some of you have already heard me talk about this, but I think it's important to understand that the question is, do people need a specific visa to buy real estate? And it's important to understand that the foreign national can buy real estate anywhere without actually physically entering the US. Some of you, I think David mentioned it, are working with clients from India, for example, who may not be entering the United States. They may not even have a visa, but they have the capital to invest. And if you're working with Alicia Castellanos, who I've worked with many times and is the best cross-border tax person that I know, there are ways to set up entities also that protect the investment, that allow people to invest through companies, and they don't need visas to do that. So it's important to understand that if you set up a company, you have essentially a proxy, you have a power of attorney, you have something that is representing you here. And of course, like Alicia said, you need to make sure you have a solid team of experts that you're working with. What you cannot do is set up a company and run the business for profit without authorization. And so if you're setting up an LLC or corporation somewhere in the US so you can buy property, you need to make sure that you're limiting the scope of that usage to the property itself and not to generating additional income. You can't work for that company without a proper visa. So preferential treatment, you guys have heard me talk before, and my first question is, what passports do you hold? So if you're talking to prospective clients, the most important question to ask them is, what passports do they hold? Because if they have passports from certain countries, they have specific advantages. One of those, like we talked about, is ESTA Visa Waiver Program. If you're from one of 38 countries, which comprises mostly the EU countries, but also countries like Chile and Singapore, Japan, you can come to the US without a visa. And so those individuals, if they're triangulating right now because of the travel ban, can come into the US without having to apply for a visa. If you're a skilled worker and you're from Australia, Canada, Mexico, Singapore, Chile, you have preferential treatment in terms of visa possibilities. So you can process visas. Right now, if you're Australian, you could get an E3 visa and come to the US. And I tell you this because this alphabet soup is important to understand. Once you know where they're from, what options are available to your prospective buyers and clients, and that depends on their nationality. The last one is E2, which is my specialization, which is investment-based temporary visas. There are currently 81 countries that have a bilateral treaty with the US. So if you're from one of those countries, you can get this potential E2 visa by setting up a US company. And some of those can be flipping, where you can set up a company where you invest enough capital to manage 4 or 5 properties at a time and build a team of employees, because it's all about job creation. So the most important question here when you're talking potential foreign national clients is, what passports do you hold? Why do I say that? Because let's say you're Brazilian, but your wife is Italian. She has access to E2 treaty, a Brazilian does not. And so you can apply for a visa through her passport by setting up a US company and sponsoring yourself and your spouse to run that company, which can get you access to the United States. Dual intent is something that comes up a lot. It's an important term for people to understand who work in international investment. And that means essentially that it's something that's possessed by certain visa holders that allows them to then transition to a green card, and they don't have to maintain a foreign residence. And the major categories are H-1B, which are skilled workers, and L-1, which is for intra-company transfers. It's important to note that because of a presidential proclamation based on COVID, right now, those visas for new people are not being issued, at least until the end of this year. So the presidential election and the congressional elections will have a big role in determining how long this bar is in place. Right now, it's until the end of 2020. So you want to be up to date on this. Obviously, it's important to talk to an immigration specialist who understands the consular part of this, what visas are available, what are not, what countries are those people coming from, what does the process look like, in order to let them know what their possibilities of coming to the US are and when. Here's the question that always comes up. So some of you have heard this, but the EB-5 real estate myth is something that always comes up, and I just wanted to touch on it for 1 second. This is still a fact that you cannot get a green card simply for investing in a property. You need to invest through the EB-5 program, and what that requires is now a $1 million minimum investment. And that investment you have to show within 2 years will create at least 10 full-time jobs. Those can be very low-paying jobs, minimum wage, but they have to create 10 jobs. And that requirement has not changed whatsoever. So important to keep this in mind. If somebody says, somebody told me that I can buy a property and I get a green card, that is not the case. There are some countries like the UK that allow you to invest in government bonds and you automatically get status, but that you can't do it through a real estate purchase. That is a myth. So it's important to keep in mind that you're going to have to develop a parallel strategy in order to get those clients. How do you do that? How do you incorporate that into your sales? Well, the first thing to do is to align with EB5, what they call regional centers that have a proven track record of creating the jobs that allow people to get their permanent green cards. And so what you need to do is set up a budget for them. If the minimum investment for EB5 is 1 million, you need to add that to their budget, whatever the property cost is that you're going to be selling to them. So you can't just sell them a property and they get a green card, but it's important to align with regional centers or specific projects that you know will create those jobs, because what you do when you apply for EB5 is you get a 2-year conditional residence, and then you have to show that 10 full-time jobs were created. Once those 10 full-time jobs are created, you can remove the conditions on your green card as well as your spouse and your children, and you can all get permanent green cards and eventually become citizens. But it all depends on the job creation. So we've seen some of these in the New York area, like the Brooklyn Navy Yards or Hudson Yards. Those are obviously now no longer accepting, but it's important to make sure that you align yourself with regional centers or projects that have a proven track record of creating jobs. So my suggestion here, not to go into more detail about EB5, is just to make sure you keep in mind that the minimum requirement is now $1 million as of November of last year. If you see any projects that say that they do expedited processing or fast tracking, you should be very wary, because I don't think that that really exists. And the processing times are very long, and you'll see what effect that has now on investment. So I presented this in February in Albany at the New York State Board of Realtors event, and I showed this chart. And what's important to keep in mind is just looking at the bottom, what the tendency is or was going into middle of 2019 is the number of applications being filed has dropped precipitously. And that's because there's such a long waiting time, somewhere around 2.5 years. And I know David talked about the abundance of Indian investors in commercial properties and less from China. That tendency also happened, as I had predicted a few years ago, with this shift of EB5 investors from China to India. So now India also has a backlog on the number of petitions that can be processed at one time in one given year. And so for Indian and Chinese clients, you're looking at many years that they need to wait. And so it's not as attractive an option as it was before, but it's still being processed. And if you have questions, obviously you need to talk to someone who knows, but it's important to know where EB5 is. So I put here, it's in decline, and that's right. The denial rates have also been going up under this administration. The good news is it looks possible and maybe probable that we will have a new president. And what that means is that the denials that were happening, that were increasing under the Trump administration, should go back to Obama administration levels, which is much, much lower, a third of what they are, a quarter of what they are now. So keep this in mind, that this is constantly changing in terms of the spectrum for EB5 as well as for immigration. What are some of the international investor profiles that you want to be looking at for potential investors? Well, we talked about EB5 or E2, which can be done passively. Let's say you have a retiree that wants to live in the US. They can set up a franchise and buy a franchise from a franchisor and set up a company, and then designate a manager, and that person can run the franchise and they can live in the United States with their spouse. Students are also very popular for this when they transition out of what are called F1 visas. And because of all the problems with denials recently, there have been more people that have been investing in EB5 that were on H1B visas, especially Indians, because Indians have a very long backlog on H1B. So L1 is another great category. We talked about that. That's for executives and managers who have been transferred. They work for multinational companies and they have dual intent, which means that they can apply for EB5 and that there's nothing that's going to stop them from getting that green card. If you have another kind of visa and you apply for a green card, they may deny it based on the fact that you cannot have dual intent. It's not accepted. And so that's something to keep in mind. And then the last one that I mentioned here is rock stars, and that's what I call people of extraordinary ability. So if you work with artists and athletes that have been very accomplished and well-known, they can self-sponsor for green cards. And once you've gotten your client here, especially if they get a green card, then they become permanent clients for you, and that's really important. We talked about E2 and L1. Those are really used for entrepreneurs and business owners. So it's important to keep those people in mind. And what really delineates which path they choose is if they have a passport from an E2 country, one of those 81 countries, then they qualify for E2. L1 requires that there be a foreign company that exists and they have worked at that company for over a year. And the problem with L1 is once you create a US entity and you transfer to the US, you have to maintain the foreign entity. So somebody that wants to just do a startup or just invest in something and have their visa in hand next year, 2021, E2 is always the best option if that's possible. So always remember what I said in the beginning, ask them what passports they hold. We talked about stars. Those are people really who are extraordinary in any field that's legal. We've done them for every kind of people from all walks of life, but that are extremely well known in their industry. So that's an important one because they can self-sponsor. And then what should people ask their international clients? Well, these are some of the questions, and I think they're going to be sharing my presentation. But these are some of the questions that I would ask. Are you an employee or are you an entrepreneur? Which hat can you put on? If you're an entrepreneur, do you have a passport from one of those countries? Are you interested in passive or active investment? That might determine what kind of visa you choose. And then also, what are your long-term plans? That's what you want to ask your clients. Are you okay with a temporary visa? For example, we have a client from my native Argentina who has had an E2 visa for 14 years and does not want a green card. He wants the possibility of going back, and the tax implications of having a green card are obviously different, and that's when you talk to Alicia about it. But it's important to ask them short-term, long-term, what about their spouse if they have one, what about their kids? Because the kids will age out at 21 if they don't have a green card petition pending. So a couple of take-home lessons. I don't know how much time I've got, Tony, but let me know if I'm running out of time.
Just like maybe another minute or so to wrap
okay,
up.
Great. So we had someone in the beginning talk about this. Work on and accentuate your strengths. So if you speak certain languages, if your background is of certain culture, you want to tap into those communities, especially in the New York metropolitan area, where you can use that to your advantage and bring in those family members that they have and bring in their business contacts. It's really important to maximize and leverage your strengths. And so that should be part of your marketing. And the other thing is EB-5 is not a panacea. It's not a cure-all. There are so many options out there. I obviously have this blank because I don't know, but my conclusion is, because we don't know exactly what will happen, is that investment is still happening, E2s and EB-5s are still available, and I think that a positive result in the next few days or the next few months means that business will reopen and you're going to see a lot of foreign investors and potential property buyers connect with you again. And so this is when it's important to keep these things in mind that I mentioned. So thanks for watching. Thanks, as always, for letting me participate in this great summit.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. Thanks always for your support and your contribution to us and to our realtor friends. This was a great presentation, and thank you for referring back to things that other speakers have said. A lot of these panels are interrelated with each other, whether it's global tax, financing, immigration. So these are issues we have to deal with all the time. The laws are changing, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So we go back to the same point that we need to put together the right team to help us in every real estate transaction. And I know Steve's always part of that.
Absolutely.
Team.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker.
Oh my God.
With over 30 years of sales experience, Kevin Brown is recognized as one of Manhattan's most respected real estate professionals. A former owner and chairman of Century 21 New York Metro and a partner of what is now Warburg Realty, Kevin is a senior global real estate advisor and associate broker at Sotheby's International Realty, where he's also the head of new development on the field team. Well, Kevin began his professional career studying for a life in the priesthood with the Maryknoll Fathers. He graduated with a master's degree in theology from Fordham University and an MBA in finance from Baruch College. With this unique background, Kevin has combined his passion for real estate with his lifelong commitment to charity. And a portion of his sales commissions is frequently directed right back to charity. Kevin is one of New York City's premier luxury townhouse, co-op, and condo brokers. He has achieved over $2 billion in sales, and over 50% of his business comes from referrals through prior clients. Kevin is often quoted in international newspapers, and he regularly appears in media broadcasts. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your formula on how to grow your international real estate business. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. And I thought it was fascinating about the EB5 because I was considering the last month moving to New Zealand to escape all the drama and the craziness that we were having. so now I'm a little bit better versed in this world. So yeah, I thank you for having me again. It's a crazy time we live in. There's lots of opportunities for the brokers out there. There are brokers who are very busy, and obviously a number of brokers who are not in New York City. So I don't know, is this going to be question and answer, or would you?
I think what we'd like to do is have you make a presentation, and then we would like to leave some time in the end, maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes for some questions and answers. And just for all of the viewers out there, if you have a question, please type it into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And then when we reach the end of the presentation, we'll open it up for the questions, if that works with you.
Okay, that works fine. It's, our market is a little bit different than all of your markets in that we have what's called co-ops. 75% of our marketplace are co-ops. Co-ops are, it's not real property. You actually own shares in a corporation, and that gives you a proprietary lease to have the apartment. It still walks and quacks like a duck. So it's, for all practical purposes, it's the same thing. But, in reality is that, because the co-op model, what happens is that there's all sorts of barriers to entry, barriers to purchase, what you can do with the property, and so on and so forth. The other 25% of our marketplace, which what I focus in on, is real property, which is what the majority of you deal in, which are the condominiums and townhouses. And so, when you look at what's happening into a marketplace, you have to divide, at least in Manhattan, into those two areas. What I'm fascinated with is what's happening in the new normal. How will our new abnormal? How do we make money? Because that's the bottom line. How do we service our clients, and how do we make money? And that all depends on how we face radically different consumer behaviors, because that's what's changed. Sellers are the exact same as they were, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The traditional approach to planning often adopts the head in the sand position. That we're going to just assume away uncertainty, or that we just suffer from deer in the headlights syndrome, just being paralyzed. Now more than ever, we can't get rid of uncertainty. We live in a world of uncertainty. We have to confront it. A good way of doing this is to build different scenarios. In a world of extreme uncertainty that we're living in now, the original plan of whatever business plans that we've all developed successfully over the years won't be right now for a very long time. We need to pivot our plans and actions from moment to moment. The world that we're watching right now evolve in front of us is evolving very fast. You don't yet know which scenario is going to be coming into play, because of COVID, because of the economy, and so on and so forth. But you need to be, this is what I'm telling brokers all the time. You need to be the best learner. You need to be the first to know where the world is going, and obviously, and to communicate that to your customers and your clients. You also need to be the best adapter, the one that makes the best decisions and initiating the new plan. So, to be the learner and to be the adapter. You need to lean towards speed rather than perfection. The sooner you start something, the better it is. And so for me, I'm constantly looking for trigger points. What is going to change our market? And so for me in New York City, my a trigger point, for instance, would be that we're talking about, and it's going to happen, there's going to be what's called a pied-à-terre tax, which means that if you don't live in your apartment full time, the city for the high price apartments are not only going to charge you your normal transfer taxes when you purchase the apartment, the normal taxes, real estate taxes, they're going to charge you upwards to 4% of whatever you paid for the apartment every single year. Why that's of great concern to me is that, do you remember the movie Follow the Money? Well, if we lose the wealthy in New York City, that's going to have a huge, huge impact on our entire marketplace. The wealthy certainly can afford to pay more taxes. The wealthy do not want to feel like they're the bad guys in the scenario. So I'm not sure exactly how that pied-à-terre, that's what keeps me up at night. And I've spoken to a number of, owners and brokers from different parts of the country and about what keeps them up at night. In Boston, they were talking about that they're, talking about the rent stabilization law that's going to affect their entire investment marketing plan, rather. So, I would encourage everybody to ask in your own markets, what are the trigger points? We must get ahead of the next stage on the crises. We're supposed to be the leaders, in our own industries. And so therefore, we need to, have our eyes, always wide open. In our market, for instance, whatever I tell you today about our market in New York City, right now it's 100% correct. Tomorrow, I'm probably going to have a different answer. So it's because you get more information and you just have to pivot all the time. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago, our market, our inventory is up greatly than what it was a year ago, 2 years ago. Our sales our pending sales or contract signs were certainly down a great deal, 40% down. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen that our inventory is no longer growing. It's going down ever so slightly every single week, and over the last 2 weeks. And with our contract signs, they are going up. So that's kind of a good sign. I've been telling my sellers and my buyers, pre-election is the perfect time for buyers. Post-election is going to be, we're going to get more into a seller's market. That's the time you want to be a seller, is right now. Why? Because of the uncertainty. Uncertainty is what drives, in fact, our marketplace for, sellers get very nervous. And now we're coming into a period of somewhat certainty. And so therefore, sellers are going to have more confidence. And we as brokers need to understand that and work with that, the new feeling. For years in Manhattan, we've had what is termed, I don't know, in your marketplaces, the FOMO, fear of missing out. So out of, let's say, my own personal a pool of business, 65 to 75% of my business came from overseas, or came from at least outside of New York City, but overseas, and the majority of it was actually from, we say Asia, but even they slice it down, it was from mainland China. 2019, that completely dried up. Everybody said it had to do with the currency restrictions or the politics, or no, I don't believe any of that. Because my experience with the mainland Chinese is that they are very, very sophisticated buyers. And if they wanted to buy something, they would be quite able to purchase something. So 2019, my business from mainland China came to zero. It didn't go from 65, 75% down to 50%. It went down to zero. That said, all of a sudden, from South America, all of a sudden I started getting business. And traditionally, I never had business. And I had a very large home in Mexico. And so you would think that I would have all these deep connections and business from, for instance, Mexico. I've been in business 31 years. In the first 29 years, I had zero business from south of the border, because they'd always immediately, like they go to Miami, and then it would be like there was a wall in Miami, and they would just be so happy living in Florida. So they would not, pop over, for at least for me, into the New York City market. In the last year, I've had two of the wealthiest families from Colombia, two of the wealthiest families from Brazil, and three very wealthy clients from Mexico, all purchasing. That is like that information, for instance, that's how I pivoted immediately from mainland China. My focus went down to south of the border. So then I started, before COVID, started flying down to Brazil and Colombia and obviously Mexico. And so I think that is what a successful broker does, is that they look for that type of information, they pivot in their business plans, and they just run with it as quickly as possible. Our market, unlike many of your markets, during COVID, our market was already a buyer's market. And 3 years ago, it was only a buyer's market in the very top end. Then the last couple of years, it was a buyer's market in no matter which price point you were in or which geographical area of Manhattan you wanted to purchase in. We're still seeing that it's a buyer's market, but if you had come to me and said, Kevin, I want to purchase something, and here's my geographical criteria and my price point and so on and so forth, I would have been able to show you, I kid you not, 5 things. Now I can show you a maximum 10 things. So you say, oh, our inventory is doubled. Our inventory is still, I can only show you a very limited number of properties. The one exception would be in new development. And that's what everybody's reading about, saying that the demise of New York City real estate. They're talking about the great oversupply we have in new development. And unfortunately, at least 50% to 60%, from my experience, of new development buyers were coming from overseas. Right now, they cannot come in. So you're going to see some great values. We don't, oh, I should mention that we don't have bargains in New York City. So we don't have, like, in a lot of your markets, people come and they're looking for foreclosures or bargains. What we have are good. And if you're a good broker, you're going to offer great value. There are no bargains in New York City. That sounds depressing. I apologize, but I can just show you historically how you can make money in New York City. Whether you're an investor or whether in just the long term, you make money when you go to sell. So, our marketplace is certainly recovering. I love all of my colleagues down in Florida and certainly in Connecticut and in Long Island, who all swear that Manhattan is emptying out. It's not emptying out. Do not bet against New York City. That would be a big mistake. What we're actually seeing is that, yes, there were a lot of people who moved, for instance, to the Hamptons, and they said, okay, we're just going to homeschool our children, out here, or move to Connecticut, or moved even to Florida. But that we're now seeing that they actually are returning. Maybe what they're also going to start doing is downsizing in New York City. I mean, I'm keeping my eye on that, saying, everybody, once you get New York City into your blood, it's kind of hard to get it out of your blood. So, are we going to see, people downsizing and saying, okay, I don't need a 4-bedroom apartment anymore. My kids like it in the Hamptons. So maybe I'll just get a 2-bedroom. And so I'll downsize. And so, you're starting to see that shift. We're also starting to see a shift from, where people were going into the very hot, areas like Tribeca and Soho and the meatpacking district, where they're now moving to the Upper East Side, for instance, which is a little bit sleepy and has been sleepy for, 10 years. And because what they do not want is to walk out of their apartment house that has 500 apartments in it and be confronted with 3,000 people on the street. The whole, issue about social distancing is going to be with us for a while. So I'm seeing a shift in people's desires, both in size of the apartment, but also in geography. I'm also seeing a shift away from and I know that you're going to have architects on and, in this panel or in this seminar, but that I'm seeing a shift away from the open floor plans. People now are saying, I want to have a segregated kitchen. I want to have, just because if you're entertaining or if you have friends visiting, relatives visiting, you want to have at least 2.5 bathrooms. You can't any longer have 1 bathroom or 1.5 bathrooms if you're in a 2-bedroom place. So I'm seeing also a shift there. I'm seeing a shift in outdoor space. Everybody wants now to have a terrace, not a balcony, but everybody, their dream is to have a terrace. So, God forbid we go into another lockdown, that they'll be able to go outside and have their own little private Central Park. So we're seeing shift in taste ever so slightly. The good news for all of us is that no matter how the elections play out, the interest rates are going to, it's almost like free money right now. So I think that that's all going to give a sense of stability in our marketplace. Another change that I've seen in my own personal business is I was probably getting 60% of my business through referrals. Now I'm almost getting, I would say 95% of my business is from brokers such as you all. And thank you for the referrals. And in the same way, I'm giving out a lot more referrals. So the referrals are a big focus for me now. So Tony, I did that all in one breath. I apologize. I can't hear you, Tony.
I want to actually go back to something that you mentioned, which I thought was really super important. So you said something about there being uncertainty and a lot of changes in our world. That's something that's been mentioned by a number of our panelists. You also said that we've got to pivot our actions and we've got to plan from moment to moment. And I think that's what a lot of us are trying to do. One of the things we're looking to do, being that many of the viewers that we have on today are involved in global real estate, what do we have to do to pivot? You mentioned we have to be a better learner. We've got to communicate better with our customers. We've got to learn to adapt. So what is it that you've been doing in order to pivot? How have you been doing that? Can you share a little bit of that with our audience today?
Well, I mean, one way is to constantly be reaching out. So, I have to ask myself, did I miss the boat in some ways years ago by not reaching out as much as I am in this marketplace? So in the international, like I mentioned about going down to Brazil and Colombia and Mexico, I'm following the money. In all of your markets, I'm always fascinated, New York City, we don't have multiple listing. We are so provincial in New York City. But in your marketplaces, you can track where people are coming from. We cannot track where people are coming from. So we have to do it, by looking into a crystal ball and trying to second guess. So, your Chamber of Commerce, where are people coming from? Where are the businesses coming from? If I'm in, I don't know, Greenwich, Connecticut, and all of a sudden everybody, or Vail is a better place, Vail. If I'm in Vail and, 50% of the inquiries are coming from Mexico, I'm going to reach out to every broker, every, gatekeeper, and I'll return to that. But down in Mexico would be the brokers. I'd reach out to looking at every firm. It doesn't matter whether you're with Sotheby's or with a brand, or if you're an independent. Reach out, because it's all, at the end of the day, it's about relationships, and so relationships between each other. We made a big mistake, my partner Nikki Field and I, at the beginning when we would go to Asia. We thought, brokers are the gatekeepers. In Asia, it's not. It's the private bankers. And it took us 2 years to figure that one out. And we're supposed to be fast learners, but God, that was a long haul. Once we realized who the gatekeepers were for business, then our business shot up. And so we started going after the bankers. So I would encourage, in this world where we're all adapting, is to reach out. I every Friday, I read Mansion Global, and I read every line of it. And I write to all the brokers that, have email addresses and just say, great listing. Every single person that I touch knows 200 people. So I want to be able to touch as many people as possible. And so that's what, I'm doing a lot more, and it's paying off because I'm, obviously getting, the referrals. And so, that's what I would encourage, everybody to be doing. I refer outside of Sotheby's all the time. I'm looking for, the right broker, because, when I'm handing off, it's not so much, getting a commission. That's an important person, for me, because they also know 200 people. I often tell, because I deal in the, higher end, I often tell, people that I'm taking out, because they're always customers, even if they know you, they're a little bit suspicious about your motives. Say you're only after for the dollar. And so I'll say to them, I'm not really that interested whether you purchase this property or not. And they're always surprised. And I said, what I'm really interested in is being of service to you so that, because 200 people that I want to know. Now I've just paid them a big compliment. I'm taken out of the prostitution, thing, chapter into the, hey, I'm paying them a compliment, and so, it's, I think that that's what all of the agents should be doing is, constantly reaching out. There's not a real estate, magazine I pick up that I'm not reaching out to those brokers.
And I think there's a misconception that there is a magic formula, but there really isn't a magic formula, right? For growing your business. I mean, growing your
or growing hair. I mean, look.
Well, tell me about it. Definitely not a magic formula
exactly.
there. But you hit the nail on the head. It's about being consistent and pursuing those leads and creating new ones, right?
Yeah, and you just a key word, and there was that show like 50 years ago. God, I'm just dated myself, where a bird came down when you said the magic word, and and you said the word consistent. Be consistent. I see people fail all the time, and why? Because they're not consistent. When I had my own firm, brokers would come to me and they'd say, oh, I want to do a mailing, and and I'd say, great. What are you going to do month 2, 3, 4? I need a 6-month plan. And they said, no, I want to send out this postcard, and then I want to wait to see how it works out. Saying, no, it doesn't work that way. You have to be consistent. So, and that takes a certain discipline, and within that consistency is to be able to pivot at the same time. So that sounds like they're opposite, but they're not, so I'm consistently pivoting, if you will. And that is what my marketing now has shifted. I mean, even with technology such as this with Zoom calls, New York City. I mean, we didn't even do virtual tours. We tried them 5 years ago for 1 month, and then nobody liked them. We just did not do them. Now all of a sudden, I'm doing pitches for major properties in New York City with the owners via Zoom because they don't want me in the apartment, until, they hire me. And so, by understanding that this technology is going to stay now, how are we going to incorporate it? I mean, for instance, another thing I'm doing, even though, whatever reason, I wish my crystal ball wasn't cloudy, but the reality is cloudy like all of ours, is that before COVID, and even when COVID started hitting and we've gone from the epicenter of the worst cases in the world, New York City, to being one of the best managed now places in the world in terms of COVID. And we're not being cocky about it. It's because it could change overnight. But we are now a safe haven, if you will. I found the mainland Chinese started returning at the beginning of the COVID. They know, they're smart investors. They know where opportunities are. And so they weren't thrown by a pandemic because they've had 3,500 years of history, of written history. They are they're not as emotionally thrown as we are. And so I started seeing them come back. And so what am I doing now? On my listings, when I'm doing the, what's it called, Matterport, the virtual tours that are, far, far better, I'm now having them translated into simplified Chinese. And for your viewers, please, if you're looking at Asia and specifically China, realize there's a difference between the written word and the spoken word, and simplified Chinese is geared to the mainland Chinese. Traditional Chinese, a different writing, is for Taiwanese and for Hong Kong. I think I did that right. So now I'm having it translated. If God, I sound like I'm running for office. If you go onto my website, my personal website, kevinbbrown.nyc.com, you'll see that I do every month a calendar of events, of social events. And please, there's very little social events going on in New York City, but I make them up as they go. But every single day, there's something going on in New York City. And so now I have that all translated also into simplified Chinese. It has a number of benefits. I'm paying respect to my customers in mainland China, but it's also when I go to pitch an exclusive, now when people look at my business card, I have simplified Chinese on one and traditional Chinese on another, and they say, "Oh, you must be Mr. China. Why else would you have the card?" For all of you who speak a foreign language, for you not to, I can barely speak English. So, if for you not to play up on that and to work that, it's what a missed opportunity in that.
And that's a great point, how you're really taking a specific action to go after a very specific market. You mentioned that there's been a lot of interest now with South America, and your business is shifting a lot from China to South America. What do you think has caused that? Briefly, what are you doing specifically to reach out to that market? Because many of our viewers today do business in South America or have a South American background. They speak Spanish. So what are you doing specifically to reach out and to shift and pivot into that market?
Okay, I took years of Spanish. Tony, I love you that you said briefly. I'm a New Yorker. There's no such thing as being briefly. And so after years of Spanish, I can say, "Lo siento, mi español es muy malo." And they go, no. I go, "Lo siento." That's all I can say. The reason is that, while we look at the United States as a whole or our own individual markets and say, "Oh my gosh, like our hospitals are overfilled with COVID patients and everything else." Imagine if you are a billionaire or a millionaire in Mexico City. You're going to sit there and going, our healthcare system was already, overrun. And now at a certain point, the government is going to be pointing their guns at you as an individual because you have the money. And, with money, they think power. And so that I think is, before, buyers from, overseas were coming into New York City because it was a safety deposit box. It was very secure. Now they're coming in because it's a safe haven. And so, I think that's the reason, put yourself in the shoes of somebody in Mexico City or in any of the other major capitals in South America. You're going to say, so therefore, when they're purchasing, they're not looking as much for an investment. They're looking for, even though they'll talk investment, as we all do, it's really about being a safe haven. They're looking for a place that, in a worst case scenario, that they can escape to. That sounds awful, but it's
right. But I think that's really a key factor in a lot of countries where people are looking to park their cash in a place where the political system is fairly stable. I guess we think. I don't know. We'll see in a few days.
Yeah.
But so you're
exactly.
approaching these potential clients with that in mind. That's at the top of your mind.
Yeah, and and it's again, diversifying the portfolio. So they already have, my customers tend to, they just don't have a second home. They have a third home, a fourth home, and a fifth home. And so therefore, if I can show them that, it's a safe haven. So for instance, again, healthcare in New York City, New York handled it really well. And, yes, there were bumps along the way, but we handled it as our Governor Cuomo did a great job. And so I think that, that's top of mind for a lot of people, out there, the foreign investors. And if I can just go back for a second, when I mentioned my calendar, I send out 35,000 of them every month. And now I have calendar partners. And, yes, they're all with Sotheby's, but now, like Miami's doing it and Beverly Hills is doing it and Washington, DC. Even if you're not, like in a brand, it's that consistency. I, like send out 35,000, very little about real estate on it. I make 2 sentences and basically say the same thing every month, like life is wonderful in real estate. And so, but otherwise they still see my name, Sotheby's real estate. And then, I'm the Mother Teresa of real estate. Forgive me, Mother Teresa. And so, if I think in whatever you do, you just do it consistently. And that is, again, the biggest, challenge for brokers. But now I do it. And again, 35,000 people I'm touching every single day or every single month. If you do a quarterly newsletter, it's to me, it's worthless because in this world, if you're not touching somebody every single month, and they don't, the biggest thing, like Tony, have you ever noticed that, people, when, you sell something, then you immediately put them on your real estate newsletter, they've already purchased. So now you're also going to show them things that they should have purchased.
And that's a good point. And, the question that I have is, you're coming from a very well-known firm, worldwide,
72 countries.
Of course. But many people work for small firms, so they don't necessarily have the resources. What can they do to get the biggest bang for their buck?
Well, in the same way, I mentioned Mansion Global, saying there is absolutely no reason why they shouldn't be reaching out to the brokers, like if you could speak Mandarin, you can go on to Sotheby's, Coldwell Bank, or Century 21, all the major firms. I only did the Realogy firms right there, but all the major firms, and click on Mandarin speaking agents. And now all of a sudden you get 5 in Toronto, 5 in New York City, 5 over. Now you all of a sudden have a pool of 50 people. Spanish, obviously there's a lot more Spanish speaking folks, but it's such a, I think that people who are not part of a brand feel like they're second-class citizens in some ways, that say, they can't approach the brands. The brands are only going to refer things to within the brand. It's not true. I mean, looking from me, is not true. I refer outside the brand all the time. I'm looking for the right person. I'm looking for somebody who will make sure that they laugh at all my jokes. Are you laughing, Tony? There you go. But I'm looking for somebody that understands that it's all about the relationship. And so, if I were, again, if I were gifted in a foreign language, I'd be going after and not shy away from it. The beauty of the brands is that you can go on. I can't go on to, again, we're not multiple listing. I can't go on to a site where there's all the independent brokers and click on saying, I need a Mandarin speaking agent. I can only go on to the brands. So use the brands to your advantage. There's no reason why you can't, do that. I also, like for instance, if you all of a sudden called Tony and said, hey, Kevin, do you know somebody in Walla Walla, Washington? I refer, and I'm not making any money off of it. My job is to connect people, to be the matchmaker. And so use people like me. I'm free. So use me to, connect up, and somehow, some way it all comes back. And I do believe that you talked about God, I believe in God, and fortunately God believes in me. So you sit there, Albert Einstein, once said that coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. So, I think that, all this stuff works. And I do want to say, not years ago, it was a year and a half ago, I was giving a talk to like 800 brokers down in One Sotheby's, our great affiliate down in Miami, and realizing that, you know, half the crowd is maybe Jewish or Jewish background, half are Christian, whatever that means, background. And the talk was on in being inspiring, or what's inspiration. And I turned to the crowd and I said, you know, my partner, Nikki Field, and I, we realized only about 2% of what we do, our conversion rate that we make money on. And look at your own business, only 2% probably. And then I paused and I said, you know, I think that is the same conversion rate that Jesus Christ had. All the air got sucked out of the auditorium at that moment. Everybody got nervous for a second, and then all of a sudden the laughter happened. But you sit there going, look at Jesus's conversion rate. It wasn't all that great. You know, like a lot of people touch.
Speaking of conversion rate, you know, we have one question going back to what you said about the 35,000 emails that you sent. What is in that email? What are you sending to people? What are you focusing on when you reach out to those people?
It's consistent. It's called the monthly calendar of unique and charitable events in my marketplace. And so, and if you're in a market that can't do a charitable or unique event every day, do it by week. Now all of a sudden, you know, you're offering something. I do not put anything about, I do one new development, just a little like sidebar, just so that they, you know, remember I'm in real estate. But it's only, it's not real estate focused. And again, the reason is that, you know, like, think about all the mailings that you do and everybody else does after you sell something. It's all real estate based. And so that's a, you know, two-edged sword, you know, like it can slice you either way, because now all of a sudden, you know, you just sold something for $1 million and they're saying that the next door neighbor is 800,000. Whereas if you were sending things that were community based and realizing that, you know, if in your marketplace, if the average person keeps it for 5 years, 7 years, the house, but you got to touch them all the time. So create something that just says your weekly, you know, most interesting, you know, event. There's a broker, great broker from Sotheby's in Washington, D.C., Jeff Wilson. He sends out things and just his favorite a new pick at the store. You know, yeah, I have almost no interest. I read it every week. It's actually every month. I can't help myself. It's like, and he does another thing. You should go look at, he has a great website, but again, Jeff Wilson, that he does a Matchmaker Mondays, I think he calls it. And he just puts down like, you know, like 9 boxes and, you know, like saying this customer is looking for this, and then he'll cross them off saying, you know, found them. It's just conversation. You know, what do people, if as a successful broker as you are, when you go to a party, what do people want to talk about? You know, like, sex, you know, real estate, the politics, you know, so you're like, talk about the other things, and but always become the resource. And so that's what I do, and it has been successful because now I with my calendar partners, I probably send out 100,000. And again, you know, one thing that, you know, like really ticks me off about, you know, like firms, including our own firm, is how hard it is to find my email address. You know, you go on to their ads or anything else, and you have to fill in something to communicate. You know, independent people, I can find them a lot easier. And so I can write to them. People do not want to do that 2 or 3 step process. And
well, I'll tell you what we are going to do. We're definitely going to share your contact information with everyone. They don't have to go through that process. So that we're definitely going to do. And we're actually just out of time. We want to go into our next panel, but I want to.
Oh no.
We're taking time. You're like me, you know, we talk a lot, but we're good.
Well,
But we'll
thank you,
share your
everybody,
contact
for
information, and I think you gave us some great advice. We've got to listen, we've got to learn, we've got to pivot, we've got to adapt. So those are
Yes.
great pieces of advice. So thanks very much, and we appreciate the time that you spent with us today.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, and I look forward to hearing from everybody. And if you do come to New York City, please, please, please let me entertain you. I'll take you to the Metropolitan Club. We'll have lots of fun, lots of drinks. Not
Love
all
it.
at one time, though.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kevin. So now I'd like to shift gears, and I would like to introduce you to Susan Greenfield, who will be moderating our next panel session. Susan has over 40 years of real estate brokerage, marketing, branding, and consulting experience. She leveraged her experience with Merrill Lynch and then started her own real estate brokerage firm, which she then merged with Brown Harris Stevens, where she has been a top producing agent ever since. Susan continues to grow her international business through global networking organizations like FIAPSI, and she's been a part of the CIPS faculty for the National Association of Realtors since 1995. So thank you, Susan, for that. I'd like you to please go ahead and present the next panel for us.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here today. This has been an incredible morning. Incredible. First of all, my favorite subject, which is global. I've been doing global real estate since 1981. So well before many of my colleagues even recognized global. And many of the speakers this morning have been phenomenal too. And many people I know very well. Carol Karras and I go way back to the CIPS designation. And, you know, that's a designation that's internationally recognized all over the world now. I know I personally taught CIPS in Austria. I taught it in Italy. I taught it in France. I've taught it in Bulgaria and Romania. So it's something that I believe people who are interested in global real estate recognize the designation. So I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the other speakers that I heard this morning also, because I think they're very, very important. I think the legal aspects that you heard about from Steve are very, very valuable and take good lessons. And you said you're going to share that. Also, the global tax implications that Alicia revealed, that's very important too. When you're in real estate, and you're interested in doing global business, you need to have your team. You need to have your team of experts. And we teach this in CIPS because CIPS is where you learn how to develop the skills that you can use in your daily business. So let's get on with our panel. I have the pleasure of introducing, and by the way, you know, you have the credentials of each one of our speakers in your program. So I won't go into the detail, but I would like to introduce the panelists because I know each one of them. Alina Asby is from San Francisco. She's a very well-known international broker and is a very efficient, I would say, mentor. She reaches out and she teaches and shares. And I think all of us in this business that really are successful want to bring our colleagues up to the same level because it makes our business a better business. In addition to Alina, Asaf Epstein is from Jerusalem, Israel, and I know Asaf through NAR and our relationships, and welcome to him too today. Ron from Staten Island, I know very well, and Ophelia also from Costa Rica. So why don't we ask our first panelist, Alina, to share some of her exciting success stories. One in particular that she told me about in a previous conversation, and I asked her to share that today. These are the secrets of the CIPS designees that can help you to grow your business. Alina, please.
Oh, thank you for having me here. It's very exciting. As you can see, I've already used the background for this global summit, you know, which I'm very proud to use. We're also coordinated in red, Susan, today. We didn't talk with each other. I didn't know that you're going to wear red, but I guess it's a color of hope and good luck. So good morning, everyone. I've been a CIPS for about 8 years right now. And I found it so interesting and fascinating that I can have this insight in the way how real estate business is done across the world. I am personally an economist, and my background is in globalization. So this one came natural to me. I always wanted to find a way to still remain in San Francisco, where I'm a broker and where I activate, but connect the city where I'm living and operating, which is also very global, very international to the world, and travel and meet a lot of real estate professionals around the world and get involved. So I got involved into NAR. I just appointed as a global coordinator for Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and I am very honored about this position. Looking forward to expand connections, but I would probably not talk too much and go back to what I do as international real estate broker and realtor, and how I benefit from the CIPS connections. So I think that a lot of people even this morning touched on was the fact that I don't see how us as real estate brokers, even CIPS designees, could take listings abroad. So we need a strong partnership abroad. This is very, very important. And this is what I do. When I market properties that they are listed somewhere else, because obviously other brokers and colleagues of ours in the CIPS network and even outside of it, that we try to convince to become CIPSs and join us, they need help to market their properties. The example that I will give right now is that I am marketing this very beautiful estate located in Modena, Italy, which belonged to the famous opera singer Luciano Pavarotti. So his first wife and family are selling the estate right now. It's a beautiful property located on 10 acres, but I would like to concentrate, before I will show you the video, and how I received this listing and the connection. So actually I received it through a client of mine from Chicago, who wrote a book that's called Rome with Kids, a traveling guide, who also has a real estate license, noticed my involvement in global real estate and the fact that I have a CIPS designation. She was the connection to a broker in Italy, in Bologna. Through this connection, I signed an exclusive representation marketing agreement outside of Italy with the accounting and a law firm that represents this lady, the estate. As you know, in Italy, you need an attorney most of the time, and sellers at this level will always need attorneys and CPAs. It's a complicated taxation structure. So the way this is structured is that the accounting law firm signed and represents the seller, and they are working with the local broker, which is my partner in Bologna, and also at her recommendation, they were looking for an international broker who can market the property outside Italy, because most likely, especially in this beginning of recession and market, it probably will not be an Italian buyer for this villa, most likely. So they thought, what about we choose somebody who does have such a designation and has a different reach than we have, that's beyond local, and can market in the United States and beyond. So here I am representing this beautiful villa, which I'm very excited about it, making sure that everything was safe to use. For example, one of the maestro pictures. But I was not allowed, of course, to use his voice, just the music, the opera music, but not his voice, because that's subject to copyright. So this is the way it's structured. It's structured that way that I market it here. But if I need any help locally with everything that has to do with local ordinances, local regulations, and showing the villa, I will, of course, work with my partner in Italy. So if you'd like to actually help me put on the video with the villa, I would be very thankful. I think it was a little choppy. I don't know what happened, but if you're interested, I could definitely send you additional information, because the price is not there and there are not as many interior pictures. But you have an idea. It's a beautiful estate on 10 acres, and I'm very proud to represent it. And in my video description, I do mention that I have the right to market exclusively outside Italy, not that I'm the listing agent.
I see we have some questions, and I'm trying to bring them up. Can you touch
Yeah,
them?
I can see them. How do you
Yeah,
split commission
okay.
with broker in Italy? It's structured 3 ways by the taxation company. So it's 1/3 for each. That's how it's structured. And of course, on my side, if I cooperate with the broker in the United States, I will split my commission.
That's
I
generally
did not
how-
fly in person, and another question was if I went in person to see it. Unfortunately, not. I would have, but considering the situation and all the COVID pandemic, I can travel right now. I'm stranded in San Francisco. That's my intention to do it first time when it's possible. But that is why I have a partner in Italy. We communicated and worked together, and I mentioned what I would like, that I would like a drawn video to be done. And we are working together on marketing and partnership until I can make it there.
Great. We're kind of short on time, so let's get back to the other questions after we introduce our next speaker. Thank you, Alina. That was very valuable, very valuable. Now I'd like to introduce Asaf Epstein from Jerusalem. Asaf, hello.
Susan, how are you?
I'm well. How are you? Would you like to
Great
tell
to
us
be
a little
here.
bit about yourself? It's wonderful to see you. Yes.
Yeah, seeing
Welcome.
very good friends that I used to see on conventions, but now.
Yes, I know.
Ocean, Ophelia and Ron and everybody. Thanks for
Oh, but
having
this
us.
is a good medium, right? At least
This
we
is
can
a good
see each other.
medium. For now.
Yeah.
I'll keep missing
For
you
now.
guys. First of all,
So tell us.
yeah, generally, I know we're short on time, but generally, like everybody else, most countries are closed or half closed or about to be closed or about to be open. So everything is a mess. So of course, we're talking about regular times, because today it's, in my opinion, it's a bit more difficult to do international transaction, especially when I believe that people would like to see personally the property, at least from my point of view. But I know people are doing businesses also without being there. That being said, I had a very good experience with Ron, who's beside being a great friend, and I think he's a great realtor. And we know each other like 6-7 years, over meeting, conventions, delegations, and I believe the personal connection between business professionals like realtors, of course, and even over the Atlantic, over the ocean, still, when you know somebody personally and you feel trust and you know he knows how to work and how to deal with business and he got the right answers, you feel confident to refer. And when you feel confident to refer, you give this confidence to your clients. And it's a chain. And if the chain is safe, everybody enjoy from it. And Ron would, I'm sure, is going to give some details regarding the transaction. What's the most important thing to me to reflect from this transaction, and it's not a beautiful villa in Italy, I'm sorry, and I don't have a concert around, but it was beautiful. It was only a property in Manhattan, but I believe, and that's what I'm trying to reflect to my agents and to people in Israel who are in our industry. If you want to do international transaction, first of all, be a member, what I believe, be a member in the NAR, which combines and gather what I believe most of the professionals around the world. It's a very important house and home for us, for everybody. And of course, make sure you're going to work on your contacts, on your professional contacts. That's what I'm trying to do. Beside my own business, I also do a lot of public bids in our industry in Israel. I'm the chair in Jerusalem of the Chamber of Brokers, and I'm vice chair to the Israeli Chamber of Brokers. So I'm trying to show people how to connect internationally, how to do business, how to reflect to your clients, to your business associate, what is the importance of being globally. But after all, as we say, we are a small village. And now, because we cannot fly in and out, we cannot fly in and out, it seems a bit far away, a bit distant, but we have the digital area, we have the media, but the most important thing, again and again, I will say, personal relationship. This is my motto. I believe in it. This is what makes the thing ticks, and this is what makes the business run.
You're so right. Relationships are everything. Without a relationship, as we say, there is no business.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, I know we're short on time, so I think we'll come back to each one of you, but I'd like to introduce Ron. You mentioned Ron. Ron is a very successful broker, his own brokerage home, his own brokerage company in Staten Island. Ron, would you like to?
Sure. Hi, Susan. How are you?
Introduce yourself. Hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Nice to see you as well, and nice to see everybody on the panel. And thank you for the invite. I have my own brokerage firm. It's American Homes Group. We're members of a few associations. CIBOR, which is a Staten Island board, happens to be the Ambassador Association to Israel. And that's how I was introduced to Asaf originally prior to becoming a CIPS. And that's how the relationship started to cultivate. And to Asaf's point, I think probably one of the most important factors is the trust level between the partners on the other side of the world, right? So Asaf had a client who had inherited a condo in Manhattan, and we had discussed it. And as a member of REBNY, he decided to refer the listing over to me, in which we put our whole team together. And to the point of the importance of a team is to make sure that the attorneys are aware of international sales and are able to communicate effectively with all the partners involved. We use Google Translate a lot, if I remember correctly, the attorneys, and certainly used Asaf as the intermediary for me in Israel, handling the client on that end until we were ready to close. Some of the key issues that we did have in terms of explaining on the sales side was the FERPTA, which they didn't seem to really grasp that there was this huge tax on the sale, but I think we got past that. And it was a wonderful experience. And again, it was really based on the relationship, and we've continued to grow on that relationship. And I think to many of the panelists prior, we're talking about the consistency, staying in touch, staying engaged. I could tell you that Asaf and I think we speak or Zoom on a weekly basis, discussing challenges that we might have in this country or also in Israel. It led to a trade mission, which NAR sponsored. We were happy also to have Joe Schneider with us on that trade mission, which was spectacular. It enabled us to really get a pulse of what's going on there. We met with legislative members of the Knesset. We met with the Ministry of Justice to discuss consumer advocacy, code of ethics, ways that we might be able to help promote their business and their association, and how we're able to communicate. And ever since then, I mean, it's been an ongoing process. This past year has certainly been difficult with the pandemic and getting business done. However, we certainly have quite a few ideas for the future on how to digitally get our clients on both sides of the ocean together. It's been wonderful.
But you know, Ron, I think that's beautiful, but you never would have really recognized the world of possibilities if you had not taken your CIPS.
And that's absolutely valid. And that is very true. It's opened up a whole new world for me and for the relationships that I'm able to communicate with people from around the globe and have a trusted partner, because that CIPS designation tells me that they're on a different level, right? So I'm able to feel with confidence that I'm able to refer out. And
that's incredible, but that's the value
absolutely.
that the CIPS designation brings to you, and you never knew it before. How many times did I talk about it at our meetings? I would stand up and people just didn't get it until they decided to take the leap. And look what happened to you. All right. Look what happened to everyone who's already spoken. It's all because of CIPS.
Absolutely, without question.
So we need to get more people aware of it, because I think it's a very valuable program, and most people don't even know here in this market.
What I think that one of the biggest things that we should realize is that we are local no matter where we are today. With a click of a button, we're able to communicate with anyone from around the globe for the most part, right? So why not take advantage of those opportunities?
Yes, absolutely, Ron. I'd like to bring Ophelia on, because I want to make sure that she has some time to talk about Costa Rica, and then we'll come back to everyone, because I think that we all have so much to contribute, but I think it's important that we see just with our own eyes how these relationships are global. And Costa Rica is another very important example of that, wouldn't you say? So we have Jerusalem, we have San Francisco, we have Costa Rica. My God, it's wonderful. The world is our oyster. So if you don't mind, I'm going to move on to Ophelia, and then we come back, Ron, okay?
Sure thing.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Susan, for the opportunity and for the pleasure to see Asaf and Ron and Alina. It really is an honor to be in this fantastic group. The CIPS for me really means an awful lot. I took the first CIPS in 2011 in Costa Rica with Don Carlos Fuentes, and it was done in Spanish. And then after that, the other association that also belongs to NAR in Costa Rica did it for 9 consecutive years, the CIPS, in English. And it turned out to be a mission, because the Americans would come to Costa Rica, would have the course of the CIPS and also the tours of the products at the beach, and also in the GAM area where I'm at. I'm in San Jose, the capital. But I want to tell you, to the people who really does not know what the CIPS brings to you. When I first took it, you know, it was really to know the how to do business in the 5 continents and the idiosyncrasies of each of the countries, to give you the confidence of how to deal with each of the people. And I think throughout all these years, you know, one of the things that I miss the most at the NAR convention is the CIPS breakfast, because not only do I get to see all of you, but also is to really get to know each other, is the networking, and also the long time friends relationships that develop from it. You know, every time I see Asaf, you know, I remember the first time how tall he is, and I will never forgotten him, you know. And it was a click, and it's with everyone else the same. And you develop that that relationship that gives you so much in the future. I want to tell you just something, a little story that I think is cute. From the very beginning, I was fresh from the CIPS, and in Costa Rica, we had a firm from Japan that came to settle in Costa Rica. And they knew that I was in I'm the director of the International Real Estate Association in my country. And soon I will be the president of CILA, which is the Confederation of Latin America, from Mexico all the way up to Argentina. So at the time I wasn't that, but I was the international director. So I was rather new at the CIPS. So I wanted to impress the CEOs from because they were relocating their families in Costa Rica. So I went with my CIPS course and check, make sure that I will do everything. You know, I wear my long skirt, you know, with something red. I didn't appointed the number 8 because it's not good luck. The presentation of the card has to be done correctly. I mean, I really checked everything. So I went to the meeting. The only thing that I was not prepared for is that the man, the CEO who attended me, would not raise his eyes to me. You know, I did the whole presentation. I thought I did quite well because I checked everything. I made sure that I was going to do quite well, but I never had any eye contact. So I went back home and I felt I probably didn't do it right, or he didn't like my personality. I was not sure because I was just brand new at the CIPS, but I knew I had checked all the things that I needed to do. Well, to my surprise, 2 days later, I received a beautiful, beautiful letter from this man who not only applauded my presentation, says, "You are so professional, you know exactly what to say, what to wear." I mean, it was a compliment of what the CIPS designation taught me. So from then on, I knew that this was something that was my way of dealing business. I do most of my business is international, and I do sell entire projects throughout the world. So when I do find a CIPS any place in the world, I do have a smile from ear to ear because I know what that person knows. She or he knows what expect of me. So I call the CIPS like a family. A CIPS family. You get to know them, they get to know you. And then the referrals, of course, international, this is what it's all about. But if you know that it comes from a CIPS designee, you feel sure, you feel good, you know what they know what they expect of you. So you know you are within professional people. So I do thank the CIPS for setting me straight and for learning how to do business in the 5 continents.
That's a very, very special story, because as you know, we teach every culture and you learn about that culture.
That's it.
And you, Ron, Alina, and Asaf, you all have had success in receiving business and giving business, referral business. We have another question. Can you read it? Because I'm on my phone, and every time I tried to take it up.
They're asking how to sign up to become a CIP.
Excellent. Well, I think that we can get you that information. It should be available from this program, is it not?
We will make sure that it's sent out to everyone.
Excellent, excellent. So we have a little time now, which I'm really glad that we do, so that we can go on with more questions. And maybe one of you can tell us a little bit about some of the, I would say, travel. Do you find that you have to spend a great deal of time and effort going out to meet other CIPS people? Do you take any kinds of special trips and visit some of your relationships around the world? Ron, you talked about, Ron, tell us about the program that Staten Island did, yes, in Israel.
So I think it was not this past March, the year prior. We had a trade mission to Israel. It was a group from Staten Island, along with Joe Schneider and Barbara Schmerzler, who joined us, who I think at that time was the outgoing of FIAPSE, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a terrific trip. It enabled us to really get a lay of the land, to get a feel of what's going on. And I think it was important because, again, I have a very close relationship with Asaf, but we were also able to meet with other brokers and other firms within the country to sort of get their perspective on what's going on and some of the challenges that they might have with doing international business, and also enables us to come back and say, we need to sort of modify, we need to change the way we're doing this in order to get to the end result. So it was wonderful seeing the country, seeing the people, experiencing the food.
How many people went on the trip?
So I think we were, let's see, Shari Kingsley was there with us. We were a good friend. We had one, Shari.
Yes.
I think we were about 8 plus our spouses and our significant others. So it was we were together for an entire week. Asaf was a wonderful host, as well as all the other brokers and associations. Spectacular.
Okay, I just got a message that the session is ending. I just want to say one thing. We did do an Italian mission twice from the State Association, and we had about 30 people going each time.
That's wonderful. So, of course they wanted to go to Italy, right? You know, it's just that I just wanted to mention one thing, that since I became a CIPS, every time I travel, I make a point to connect with somebody ahead of time and have a meeting with a broker at some real estate office, learn something about a property or tour it. And this is amazing, you know, that you find so many people associated with NAR. Like last year, I went to Guadalajara, for example, and I was looking for people who have this designation, and I found this wonderful gentleman who took us to San Miguel de Allende from Guadalajara and looked at the development, and it became, you know, we had an interesting conversation, me in a not perfect Spanish, he in not that perfect English, and mine being, you know, on top of it, very confused, you know, mixed with Romanian, but it was a friendship that you never forget and will always have, and the connection that extended beyond business.
And it's a very important thing.
Yeah, I'd like to add just something, that in Costa Rica, the trade missions to the CIPS is every year, except this one because of COVID. So this is something, an opportunity to come and visit the country and take the designation, which I think is something we all should do.
Great. Right. Thank you so much.
That's right. And
thank you.
End this session with just reiterating what Alina and Ophelia both said. Both of them mentioned the CIPS family, and that's really what it is all over the world, over 4,000 CIPS designees. And the resources that NAR provides, the vast resources of CIPS, and the networking opportunities that we have, that's really what we need to look for and follow in order to grow our businesses. So great resources that we have that we can take advantage of. So thank you so much, Susan. Thank you for all of the panelists for being here today. And right now I'd like to basically close out the day. And I'd like to introduce to you another important guest who is also a CIPS designee herself, by the way. I would like to introduce Eugenia Foxworth, who's going to just share some closing remarks for day one. Eugenia opened her brokerage firm in 2008 in New York City. She became an active member of FIAPSE USA in 2003. And in 2005, she was elected as FIAPSE USA's local council president for New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. In 2019, she was appointed as the first vice president of the executive board of directors for FIAPSE USA. Eugenia is the president-elect for FIAPSI USA and will be sworn in as the president in May 2021. Real Estate Weekly recognized her in 2019 as one of the leading ladies in real estate. She was also honored as a Woman of Excellence by the New York Women's Chamber of Commerce. And in October 2020, Real Estate Agent Advisor highlighted her as one of the phenomenal women in real estate. Of course, she also has her CIPS designation, as I mentioned. So, Eugenia, welcome. Thank you. And please share a few closing remarks with us on day one.
And we are having a little technical difficulties getting up. There she is. And you just need to unmute. Jessica, if you could just, there you go.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Or afternoon. I must say, I'm so happy I was invited to be your closing speaker. Today was like the 6 degrees of separation. The topics and the people. Even Asaf, I haven't seen him in years. I met him at one of the NAR events in Florida. Amazing. So I'm not going to do the usual. Since listening and being on this listening to this program, I will say I am so proud that when I went to join, well, I shouldn't say join, it was by default. I became a broker. I mean, not a broker at that time, I was an agent with Coldwell Banker Hunt Kennedy. And of course, they were involved with everything. I did my CIPS course in 1 week in New York, or 1 day, then the rest in Greece, then in Athens when they were having the bombs, etc. So I just feel that, as they mentioned, I am a member of FIAPSI. For those of you who do not know, FIAPSI is the International Federation of Real Estate. It was founded in Paris in 1951. And in 54, we became an ECOSOC, which is economic and social. We got economic and social status with the United Nations as a consultant. And all of these things have come together basically because of NAR. Had it not been for NAR, I would not have met so many people and branched out as I've done. So I feel that as though today was one of the most interesting and important summits for all of us who were on this Zoom call. Of course, listening to all the various speakers, you suddenly realize how NAR has pulled us together, just as FIAPSI. The difference is FIAPSI basically is sort of like an umbrella. We embrace every aspect of real estate, whether they're mortgage companies, whether they are appraisers, attorneys, every aspect of real estate. And we have partnerships. And guess who our partner, one of our partners is? The NAR. Guess who is on our board? Joe and a couple other people with the NAR. People that have spoken today, a couple of which are Alina and Emmy, Susan, all the FIAPSI members. But this is the importance of us having partnerships and being together. And we feed off of each other. For example, I listened to how people got their various deals, and this one was here, or Barbara Schmerdler going to Israel. This, for me, today was an aha moment, and it certified why NAR is important, as well as all of the chapters, whether it's HGAR, Bergen County, San Francisco, New York, well, Manar, whatever. It's important because we work together. Kevin, I did my first deal with a major company, which happened to be, I can say it now, who was looking for a property at 100 UN Plaza. That's years ago. I'm in the business 20 years, but it's like yesterday. And I think the most important thing is look at all of the things that NAR has to offer. Look at all of the things that FIAPSI has to offer. There are other partners that we all work with, whether it's ARIA or whomever, but you think, where did it all come from? Where did it begin? Did this one start at this place or in that place? And when I'm looking on at all of you, you're the ones that I know are very successful. How do you become successful? Education. You need to be educated about real estate. It's not taking a license and, okay, I'm going to go out and sell an apartment. No, these summits are important. Our memberships are worth it. The memberships that we pay is not even a grain of sand on the beach when you consider what you get out of it. And it is my honor to be able to float about and be with such an amazing group of people. Now, I don't know if I still have much time to talk because I see someone named Tony smiling. Do I have any more time, Tony? Or is it time for me to say sayonara?
A minute or two.
I have a minute or two, okay. Well, the one thing that I would like to encourage, FIAPSI has a chapter, which they mentioned. I am now the president-elect, the FIAPSI USA chapter. We are in 65 countries. You are protected when you have members in other countries. Yes, NAR is in different places, but we too, well, most of our members, well, we're mostly realtors, so it's not like we're separating, et cetera. But we have councils in all the, different cities within the United States. And I just feel that familiarize yourself with us, as I do with NAR and the New York State Association of Realtors. And I just wanted to say thank you for being here and for inviting me, and thank you, Kathleen.
And thank you, Eugenia. I mean, one of the important things that we wanted to share with our audience today is that there are resources out there for them to take advantage of. And one of those resources is FIAPSI. So I want to thank you for joining us today. I hope you're going to join us tomorrow. Good luck as the upcoming president for FIAPSI USA. And I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure we will be able to collaborate again during your term in office. So I look forward to that.
As I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank everyone in our audience for joining us for day one of our Global Real Estate Summit. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've been able to spend as much time with us as possible and to gain some important knowledge and insight. As I mentioned when we first started, today's sessions were more about the practical tools and knowledge that you need to grow for your global real estate business to grow. But I'd like to invite you to come back tomorrow for day two, which is going to be very different from what we typically experience at these types of real estate events. Tomorrow, we're going to take a somewhat fantastical journey into the future of real estate. We're going to talk about how buildings, neighborhoods, communities are being designed and reimagined in ways that advance economic and environmental sustainability. We're going to see how they incorporate nature and natural settings, how they accommodate the needs of a workforce that increasingly work from home. We're going to see how they can protect our health, especially in light of pandemics, and how they promote social well-being and even happiness. We'll be talking with Canada's Charles Montgomery, an award-winning author and urban designer. We'll be joined by Australia's Nikki Greenberg, who's a real estate futurist. That's going to be really interesting. And we'll also be joined by award-winning architect Raya Ani from Iraq, who will share her multidisciplinary approach to architecture and design. And we'll hear from Romania's Livia Tudor, who's going to announce the launch of his Immune Standard certification. It's a first of its kind certification for healthy buildings. So, you know, that's great for our times, right? So tomorrow we'll explore real estate trends that are truly global and that influence not only what, where, and how we build, but they also impact the choices that buyers, that our clients make when they're searching for their next real estate investment. It's going to be a very interesting day, and I hope that you can join us. Thank you again, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.